Ashley's life was divided into before and after when she had to make a choice. Her life became a living hell. Her boyfriend Bob was a cool translator working for a big company. They weren't short on money. He graduated from a linguistic school in New York. That's where they met. Ashley loved him more than life and thought he loved her back. It all started with one text when his boss announced a business trip. Ashley wasn't surprised. Bob often traveled to other cities and countries. It was his profession. He couldn't help it. Ashley was completely calm about it. She was sure that he wasn't cheating. He was a very nice guy, had graduated 3 years ago, and was 2 years older than Ashley. He was 27, respectively, and she was 25. They still had their whole lives ahead of them, they thought. "And how many days are you going away for?" Ashley decided to ask. As soon as Bob read the message aloud to her, he fell silent. It meant only one thing. They were going to be separated for a long time. Ashley didn't like it when he was gone for so long. It's hard when the person you love is 1,000 miles away. You can't hug him, you can't kiss him. It's torture. For 6 months, Bob finally admitted. His head bowed in exhaustion. Ashley rushed to pity him, to stroke him. She knew he needed support. He didn't like being away from his beloved for so long. "It's been 6 months," Ashley whispered, parsing the word in her head. One word, so much pain in it. "Are you angry?" he asked, noticing her devastated look. Not at all, the girl lied. She was really angry, but not at him, but at his boss, who was taking her boyfriend away for such a long time. "Where are you going?" Ashley asked, trying to lighten the mood a little. "First Japan, then the US, Czech Republic, Germany," Bob smiled, stroking her cheek. "And you have me." Ashley adored the gesture, the show of affection. Bob was so tender at those moments. "You've traveled all over the world." Ashley laughed. "I'm gonna die of envy here. What am I supposed to do for 6 months? Spend our money?" The boy answered jokingly, "Not our money, yours. I don't have any money of my own. I haven't earned it yet. But I told you that my money is our money. I want you to spend it. I don't have time to use it." "I can't do this 6 months without you," Ashley sighed. "The last time you left like this was 3 years ago. I almost lost my mind." "You won't this year," Bob smiled enigmatically and left the living room. He came back with a big cardboard box. "What's this?" Ashley looked at him, puzzled. The box was small. It had small round holes in it. I think the girl had already guessed who was in there. Bob bounced around with the box a little more to intrigue Ashley even more, and then he opened it, placing it on the floor. At that moment, a little puppy jumped out of the box and jumped into the girl's arms, licking her face. Ashley washed it all off for a long time afterward, but it was nice that the little dog was so happy to have a new owner. "What do you want to name it?" Bob asked when Ashley had finally cleaned up the mess the naughty little guy had made. She looked at the puppy carefully. He was playing with a pillow on the couch. She had to come up with a beautiful, but at the same time very unusual name for him. "Let it be," Ashley started. "Do you want my advice?" Bob suddenly interrupted her. Ashley didn't understand his suggestion at first, but then she understood. Bob was a translator. He knew so many languages. Surely there must be something interesting there. "Come on," she agreed. "I went to Vietnam once and tasted a wonderful soup there. It was so good. I tried to make it at home. Only I didn't have the right ingredients. I gave up on the idea, but I still remember the name of the soup." You. Both of you," Bob laughed. "You want to name the puppy Oba?" Ashley laughed, because it really sounded like a lot of fun. "I like it, so let's call it that." "Good," Bob concluded, and glanced at their new friend. "I hope he won't let you be sad alone when you're really sad. Give him a hug and then call me." Ashley almost cried at those words. That was so sweet. Bob had tried so hard to make her life bright that he'd given her a puppy. She'd wanted one since she was a little girl. "Thank you," she hugged him. "I adore you." "I love you too, my golden one." The words made her feel warm. Bob often called her golden because he thought her hair was as shiny as gold in the light. Sometimes he called her just gold in endearment. Because of this, he left the very next day. It was very sad to say goodbye to him, but with Ashley now was little Oba. He had learned quickly what was going on, and even seemed to get used to her, though they had known each other only 24 hours. After seeing Bob off, they both came home from the train station. The first thing Ashley did was feed her new friend, and then she made dinner for herself. She sat down to eat on the couch. Bob wasn't really a fan of that because he often dropped his food right on the white plaids, which made him angry all the time. With him, she always ate only in the kitchen, but today was a special day, especially since Bob wasn't around right now, so she could break that rule. However, fate punished her. As Ashley was moving on to the second leg of chicken, she got sick to her stomach. She had to quickly run to the bathroom, where she emptied her entire stomach. Oba never left her side. Apparently, he was tired of worrying about his mistress. He's right, or he'll die. Who was going to feed him? Ashley didn't understand why the chicken legs had gotten such a reaction. But Ashley threw the chicken away just in case it was expired. She rarely looked at expiration dates. Something made her suspicious, and she didn't like it. She wanted to check, so she ran to the drugstore to get a pregnancy test. So she hoped, sitting on the toilet, "I hope I don't become a mother anytime soon." She was certain that this was all a mistake. Ashley just couldn't become a mother. She didn't think her body was ready for it mentally or physically, and Bob was against it. They weren't thinking about kids at all. Bob was building a career, and she was his companion. That takes strength too. What kids? Ashley blinked for effect, then opened her eyes, looked at the strip, and felt empty. No, it wasn't even an emptiness, but a pain that was getting worse by the second. She kept looking and looking at the two stripes and couldn't understand. Was this someone's ridiculous joke? But then she blinked once, twice. The picture didn't change. "No," Ashley whispered, not even realizing that tears were already forming in her eyes. She wished she had Bob by her side, but what could he do to help? He could only whine. Right now, Ashley wished she could be a dog and howl. She still couldn't believe what was happening out of frustration. She took another test because they were often faulty, but this one showed the same result. In tears, Ashley got up from the bathroom and called Isabella, her closest friend. "I'm in grief," she cried, pacing back and forth across the apartment. Both of them paced with her. "What happened? Did Bob have an accident?" panicked friend. "Worse, Isabella. I'm pregnant." Silence. Then the answer. "You should be happy, silly. What are you doing? Soon you'll have someone to live your life for. You said you missed me." Isabella didn't understand. "I'm pregnant," Ashley repeated more insistently. "Bob doesn't want a baby. And neither do I. It's a disaster. I just found out about 10 minutes ago. I'm in shock. I don't know what to do." "Okay, Ashley, the important thing is to stay calm," Isabella tried to reassure her. "There's always the option of an abortion." "An abortion? Isabella? What abortion? I don't even want to hear that word. I won't have a baby." "Well, you don't want kids, like you said, and neither does Bob." "Isabella, I don't need them now. I'd like to be a mother in the future." "Oh God, what am I going to do?" "I suggest you tell Bob he's the father. He needs to know." "No, Isabella, don't you dare say anything about this. It's out of the question. Bob can't know. He's away on a business trip. A very long business trip, 6 months, maybe a year. So, you're going to have a baby without him knowing. I'm obviously not having an abortion. Okay, I need to think about it." Yeah, it wasn't pretty. But Ashley hung up. She needed to think on her own. She was still in shock, so the first thing she did was take a sedative. Wait, are pregnant women allowed to take them? Somehow that rule hadn't been cared about before. Anyway, after hours of thinking, the girl came to the conclusion that she wouldn't say anything to Bob. Thought she would tell him a little later. He shouldn't have to worry on a business trip. After all, the work is difficult and sometimes even dangerous. If he translated something wrong, those Orientals might send him to execution. That's how she lived all those months. With Bob, they called every night, but she never said a word about the pregnancy. Isabella was told to keep quiet too. No one was to find out before it was too late. Ashley herself had told only Isabella and her grandmother, who had been her birth mother. She, of course, was also against abortion and even agreed to support her if she needed help. But Ashley didn't need any help. She had enough money to live at home. Bob kept Ashley calm. During periods of nervousness, everything went smoothly. 6 whole months went by like that. Bob was supposed to be back any day now, but exactly 24 hours before his flight, he called Ashley and told her that everything was canceled, that he would have to stay another 2 months because there were some complications in Philadelphia. "Come quickly, we're waiting for you," Ashley said, stroking her round belly. Bob was surprised, and the girl immediately realized her mistake. What an idiot. How am I going to get out of this? "Me and the dog," Ashley said quickly, which made Bob laugh. "Yes, both. I miss you even more than I miss you." "You mean just like that, don't you?" Ashley jokingly took offense. "I'm going to leave you, and all I'm going to leave you is a dog." "Okay, I'm kidding," Bob said sweetly. "There's no one more important to me than you know that." When they finished talking, Ashley felt devastated. Bob didn't know anything about her, as if that realization was just now coming to light. Meanwhile, her stomach was getting bigger and bigger. There had to be some way to tell Bob about this, but Ashley was afraid of his reaction. He didn't want kids. True, Isabella had advised her not to delay. The baby's father had to know about everything. The girl kept gathering her thoughts and finding other reasons to call him. She couldn't tell him. She didn't even know what she was afraid of. And so it came to the birth itself. Ashley was accompanied to the hospital by Jody. Her grandmother was there waiting for her. Ashley was so glad that at least one person cared about her. Of course, she wished her mother could have seen the birth of her grandchild, but she had died of a serious illness when Ashley was only 3 years old, and her father had left them even earlier. That's what the girl was told by her grandmother, who took over her upbringing right after her mother's death. "How are you?" Jody asked her granddaughter as she entered the room. She came in just in time, because at that moment Ashley was once again dying of labor and wanted to give birth so that this hell would end. "It's going to be so painful for a long time," Ashley screamed, crying in pain. "Be patient. It's for the baby's sake. He'll be born soon," Jody reassured her. "He's taking his time. The contractions were getting worse. I had to call a doctor." Ashley was about to yell, but the door opened, and someone she hadn't expected to see showed up. Her heart sank into her heels, and the pain of the contractions faded into the background. "Oh, I think I should leave you," Grandma said, and closed the door on the other side. Ashley looked at Bob and couldn't say a word. He saw her in her most defenseless, most vulnerable position. Ashley stood at the bedside in a fit of contraction. "So that's rough," he said, examining her with disdain. Ashley didn't like his mood. "Bob, what are you doing here?" The girl was genuinely surprised. "You're not. I'll be asking the questions here," he continued rudely. That tone made Ashley so scared that she actually stopped talking. "What the hell, Bob?" "Bob, I can explain. It's your baby." "Thank God for that." Bob was outraged. "But it doesn't do you any honor. You hid your pregnancy from me. How could you, Ashley, lie to me so blatantly? Why?" "I was afraid you'd react differently. You didn't want kids. Do you think I'm okay now? Do I have a normal reaction now?" Ashley couldn't answer. The contractions were getting more and more painful. It was getting harder and harder to hold on. It felt like it was impossible to breathe. "You've decided to sign me to you like this," Bob continued sarcastically. Ashley's heart felt like it was bleeding as Bob stabbed her deeper with each word. "I'll tell you what. I'm not an errand boy who's going to put up with this kind of treatment," Bob said. Ashley moaned through the pain, trying to touch her lover. "Don't do this to me. You wouldn't leave me with a baby in my arms. You made a choice first, and it wasn't in my favor." "You can't tie me down like that," Bob said. "Kids and my career aren't compatible right now. So as much as it pains me to say it, we have to break up." He stood there with an indifferent face and said such cruel words, but he kept his cool. It was like he didn't care. Was it really Ashley's fault? "Bob," she began to sob. She couldn't take the contractions any longer, so she pressed the red button by the bed. A nurse came running into the room. When she saw Ashley in this position, she urgently called the midwife. The midwife came to help. "It's time to deliver," the woman said, and nodded to the nurse who escorted her to the portable couch. "Are you the father?" the midwife asked Bob. "No, I'm just in the wrong room," Bob answered emotionlessly and hurried out of the hospital. Those words hurt Ashley to the core. She didn't know what hurt more, being torn apart or having her heart broken. The second option was much worse, and while the doctors thought she was crying to get through the pain of childbirth, she was actually sobbing from the loss of her loved one. She was being torn from the inside out, both physically and mentally. But suddenly the pain stopped. It was very easy, and a little angel was placed on her chest. He screamed and cried, and then it stopped. The beating of its mother's heart must have calmed it down. She liked to think so. Ashley didn't even realize how she woke up in the room. The baby was lying in a cradle next to her bed. In the chair sat the grandmother. She was dozing. Ashley immediately called out to her. As soon as the grandmother opened her eyes, Ashley cried again. She allowed herself to let her real emotions out. After all this time, when she had finally gotten over this hell, the memories of Bob and his words that were killing her from the inside out were still fresh in her mind. Grandma immediately ran over to Ashley and began to hug the poor girl. Honey, it's okay," she said. "Are you in pain? Should I call the doctor?" Ashley couldn't stop crying. It was like she was speechless from crying. She just wanted to sob until she couldn't stop crying. "Grandma, where's Bob?" Ashley asked hopefully. She wondered if she was imagining things because she was stressed out. Bob was either on a business trip or he was sitting outside the room waiting for her to wake up. "Bob's gone," Grandma said in a heavy voice. "He said he wasn't coming back." This time, Ashley had the strength to ask what had happened. How did he end up here? He was on a business trip and was supposed to be there for another month. "It was me," Jody said in a guilty voice. "I was the one who called him. I was sure he knew about everything. I thought I'd let him know when you went into labor. But as it turned out, he didn't know you were carrying his son, and I didn't want to tell him. But now I realize how stupid that was. What was I hoping for? That he'd come home and see me with a baby and be happy." Naive dreams, Ashley scolded herself. What he did was awful. No, it was my fault. And I didn't tell him when I should have. Now we're reaping the consequences of our own inaction. "Honey, you can't blame yourself," Grandma said, stroking Ashley's head. "It's his fault alone. I don't know how we're going to raise the baby. We're not going to leave you alone, of course." "Well, it's too early to think about that. You rest now. We'll talk afterwards." 3 days passed. Ashley was strong enough to be discharged, so on Wednesday she went home to her old house, where she'd lived until she moved in with Bob. She had to arrange for Isabella to stop by his place and pick up her things. She never wanted to see the man again. She was terribly ashamed of what she had done, and would not be able to look him in the eye. He had believed her, and she had done it without telling him. Fool, Ashley thought. Isabella disagreed with her, of course, but Ashley didn't care. She blamed herself, because Bob was perfect for her. She couldn't even allow the idea that he was the bad guy in this story and not her. The stress had made her milk disappear. She had to buy baby formula. Because Ashley couldn't provide her son with good nutrition, she blamed herself even more. Her whole life had turned upside down, and now it was as if the past didn't exist for her, and it was scary. But luckily she had her grandmother by her side. No matter where Ashley was, no matter how hysterical she was, Grandma would come to her grandchild and calm her down. When Ashley couldn't control her feelings, she realized that her child needed a mother, just like she had once done, but she couldn't help it. For the entire first year she'd been on edge, those constant sleepless nights. The stress took a toll on her mental health. Ashley was so exhausted that she was seriously considering how nice it would be to lie in a coffin and do nothing. When she shared these thoughts with Isabella, she was terrified for her friend. "Listen, it's not far to the asylum," she said. "You need help, psychological help." "I don't have time. If you only knew, Isabella, I have a 1-year-old child in my arms. But if this keeps going on, are you really going to go mad? And then Liam will lose his mother for sure. Is that what you want?" "No," Ashley cried. "Look, you still have a chance to fix this. I have an extra ticket to a lecture with a very famous psychologist. He's a professor and a Ph.D. He's sure to have something useful to say." Ashley agreed. Not to say she believed in any of this, but she was so buried she was grasping for any lifeline. If this lecture with the psychologist opened her eyes, she'd be glad she did. They came to the lecture in advance, but it was already full. The meeting itself was held in the library, in a separate room, apparently paid for by the psychologist himself. Fortunately, there were still seats, and she and Isabella managed to take 2 tables next to each other. Half an hour later, a stately man with a bald head entered the room. He looked very neat. He smelled generous, calm, and rich. How does it feel to be like that? I guess Ashley will never know, she thought. "Good afternoon, dear guests," the psychologist introduced himself. "My name is Bob." And here those names Bob seemed to haunt Ashley. But would this be the rest of her life? She was already so tired. "I'm sure each and every one of you has come here with your own traumas and problems. But I'm sorry to tell you, this is not a private therapy session," Bob said. The audience laughed, but Ashley wasn't amused. She had high hopes for this man. If he didn't help her, no one else would, and the psychologist didn't even realize that he had such a responsible mission, to convince Ashley that life had meaning. Bob began his lecture with slides on objective relationships. Apparently, that would be his main topic. Ashley realized she was getting nowhere here and wanted to get up to leave. Isabella grabbed her hand, and Ashley fell back onto the table. "Sit up for me," Isabella said in a whisper. Ashley nodded silently. She didn't want to upset her friend. Isabella wanted to help after all. Ashley ended up staying and began to listen about their relationship. For the first half hour, she didn't understand what she was doing here. But then she started to look into it and found some similarities between what the counselor was saying and her relationship with Bob. "He won't let you work. You're totally dependent on him. Affects your self-esteem," Bob was saying. These talking points swirled around in her head and soon came together into a coherent puzzle. Of course, Bob is a tyrant, Ashley realized. And that was the feeling Ashley had come here for. Her eyes finally opened. She felt so relieved and free. It had been a long time since she had felt anything like this. I think she even stopped blaming herself for her and Bob's breakup. The lecture lasted only 2 hours, but it felt like an eternity, and Ashley loved that eternity. She was falling in love with this psychoanalysis more and more. And then Bob finished his lecture. He was immediately mobbed by a crowd of female fans asking for autographs and questions. Ashley had something she wanted to ask him, but Isabella was so tired that they didn't wait in that huge line to see the psychologist and just left on their way home. It seemed to Ashley that Isabella didn't even want to come here. It felt so warm. Did she really just come here for a friend? Ashley thought. Where did Bob go to school and where does he work? Ashley asked. She was curious, so she decided to find out all about his life. Since her friend had brought her to his lecture, she knew something about his personality. Well, he was a psychologist, of course. Isabella laughed. And now he works at some fancy university in New York. Why are you so interested in that? Ashley left that question unanswered because she didn't know why she was so interested. But one thing she could say for sure was that she was very attracted to psychology. Ever since then, she'd been a huge fan of Bob's, an important one. Attended every single one of his lectures, went to various events he organized, and none of it went unrewarded. A month later, Ashley was certain she wanted to go to university. "What's that?" Her grandmother was surprised at her enthusiasm. "Isn't it too late for you to go to university?" "It's never too late," Ashley quoted a famous phrase, "and that's a good thing, of course. The pursuit of knowledge is commendable. Well, let's do something about it. Honey, remember, you're having a baby." Those words brought Ashley back down to earth. And she didn't fall to the hay, she fell to the asphalt. It was very painful and disgusted with herself. For once, she decided to think about herself. But who would think of her son in that case? She didn't want to be a bad mother to him. No one in his family would ever lose their mother again. Liam should be happy and well provided for. "Well, university studies can be postponed," the girl said, bowing her head. The grandmother seemed to realize that her granddaughter was not very happy about this outcome and said, "So there is no need to grieve. You live in the XC century. Not in the Middle Ages. You have to take a year to prepare for college to get in. You have no idea what a huge competition there is now. I asked my neighbor. Her daughter's going this year. And in a year, Liam will be old enough to go to kindergarten. You'll have the whole day free." Grandma saved the day. Ashley screamed with joy and threw herself into her arms. "Hush, hush," she laughed. "Are you going to wake Liam?" As planned, Ashley spent the whole year studying for her psychology exams. She had to pass biology, social studies, and any foreign language. She didn't have money for tutors, so she tried to do everything on her own. She had a good base in English at school, and her grandmother's neighbor taught biology at the local university. Ashley didn't need to study social studies because she understood it all the way through. In a year, she had gotten her biology up to a good level and was confident enough to take the exams. Ashley hadn't realized that waiting for the results would be so exciting. She was saved by both Liam, who was growing by leaps and bounds. He could already talk to her, but in his own way. To an outsider, it was often a meaningless set of phrases and words. However, he had learned well how to cry at the right moment to get his mother's attention. This was especially true when it came to food. When he couldn't get enough, he would bang on the table and throw a tantrum. Ashley would run up to him and give him another bite. "He's funny." The results were even better than Ashley expected, and she applied to college. Not to LA, of course, but the university was as good as L.A. In August, she was accepted, and she was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. At the end of the summer, she could take care of her son without the interruption of endless cramming, and she was beginning to like life. Yes, it was hard, but like everyone else, Ashley was beginning to get a taste for it. Toward the end of August, she started looking for a job. She realized that her grandmother's pension wouldn't be enough to feed her and Liam, whose needs were growing every year. She had to think about where to go to work. They didn't hire many people without an education. You needed a degree. But here in one company, she was accepted for a position, if it could be called a position. It is unlikely that a cleaner can have any career growth. But the company paid well, and there were only IT people working there, and Ashley didn't even want to go into details. The main thing was that it paid well for just a few hours of work. "So, would you like to work for us?" the girl at the interview asked her in a nasty voice. There was no reason to interview for such a position. To scrub floors, you had to know different cleaning methods and patterns. Yes, Ashley smiled, confident that she would be accepted. "Do you have any accomplishments?" Ashley involuntarily let out a chuckle. "But why any accomplishments? To scrub floors. I'm sorry, I said something funny." The girl was indignant. "No, I'm sorry. I just didn't expect to be asked that. It's still a job that doesn't require education. Doesn't require. But you have to pass the interview, right? I take it you don't have any accomplishments. School Olympics would be okay." No." That bitch gave Ashley a scornful look. When is this hell gonna end? It was so stuffy in that office it was unbreathable. Ashley felt like she was in space without a spacesuit. The girl studied her documents for a very long time, as if she was pretending that someone else was applying for the position. But fortunately, there was no one sitting in the corridor. People value themselves, so they don't take dirty work. But for how long that girl was playing a one-actress show, it's like there's a lot of candidates with 2 college degrees sitting outside the door. "Okay, you're a good fit," she finally concluded. Ashley was overjoyed. I wanted to jump right in the office. But Ashley tried to keep her composure until she left the building. "You can start work tomorrow at 1800 hours. We'll see you there." "Thank you. Thank you." "Thank you," Ashley thanked her. And the employee was shocked at the hypocrisy, as it seemed to her. "Goodbye," she said coldly and disappeared from Ashley's sight. The day was filled with rainbow colors. On the way home, Ashley even bought an ice cream that melted in minutes. She was about to pick up her son from the nursery, and he would be going to kindergarten in September. How quickly time flew by. "What are you serious about becoming a psychologist?" Isabella asked, sitting at Ashley's house. Grandma and Liam were asleep, and the friends were talking quietly in the kitchen, whispering, you might say. And it was my experience that psychologists really do help people. Now I want to do the same. They make good money, too. Isabella winked. You'll make more money than your ex. By the way, one thing Ashley had forgotten was that at the mention of Bob's name, her heart kept clenching, but it didn't hurt so much anymore. The wounds were healing and turning into barely visible scars. He made his choice, Ashley said distantly, to leave us. Let him live his lonely life. I didn't know if I should tell you, but I can't keep it to myself anymore. I think he has a new girlfriend, Isabella said. Doesn't she look like you at all? Is she a model? Ashley laughed, remembering how Bob had always wanted to change everything about her to make her bow like a magazine model. Ashley had thought he loved her, and that was why he wanted to fix her appearance. Turns out he just wanted to pacify her with a pretty cover. No, not attracted to her at all. Well, that depends on how you look at it. Of course, her lips are so pouty I thought she was a duck. Isabella has grinned. I'm sure there's a lot of money in those lips. His money. And those bright, long nails that could reach to the moon. All in all, a regular dummy. I don't envy your Bob. Money, you were always smart. He's the one who kept you from studying and earning. He knew you'd get smart and realize he was a jerk. And that's what really happened. I'm glad you left him. He left me, Ashley corrected. And not just me. Those words didn't hurt her so much anymore, but a fact is a fact. You think you left him the moment you decided not to talk about the baby. He was already using you. Ashley nodded. But it was better to think that way. It was nice to know that it was all behind her. She was living a happy life now, albeit at her grandmother's house for now. But she knew there was more to come. She had a beautiful son who would grow up to be a good man without a father, and who said that was where her love adventures would end. Ashley was still young enough to fall in love again. Unlucky the first time, lucky the next. Love is complicated. But who said life was simple? It's complicated. Because if it were simple, it would be very boring, and people don't like that. After this private conversation with Isabella, Ashley's self-esteem increased dramatically. She became even more confident in her decision to become a psychologist and change her life. She wanted to come home at some point and tell her grandmother, "We're moving to the seaside where you've always dreamed of going." Ashley did everything for this goal, for her beloved grandmother who never left her side, and for her son who needed her care. At work, Ashley was told of her duties to clean the conference rooms and offices every day, wash the windows once a week, and water the flowers. There weren't that many duties really. Ashley decided to take weekend shifts so that she could work during the day. The pay was better. Unfortunately, she was unlucky with her co-workers. Who knew there were such nasty girls working at this company? She should have known that from the look on the face of the girl who hired her as a cleaner. Ashley was the only one here. The other young girls worked as secretaries and managers. They very often passed her in the hallway, and going around the corner, laughed without hiding it. Well, everyone has their own complexes, Ashley thought. Maybe their parents made them scrub the floors at home, and now they could laugh at people like me. Psychology was saving her, after all. It had opened her eyes to a lot of things. People didn't seem so cruel to her now. She knew that everyone has their own traumas and complexes, with which not everyone fights, because they do not realize it. So they take out their anger, resentment, and lack of love on others. One day in October, however, a situation happened to her that Ashley still recalled with irritation. One Saturday afternoon, she was cleaning the hallway outside one of the conference rooms. This company was quite wealthy, so the floors here were marble. She had to scrub them several times so they wouldn't get streaks. They were supposed to sparkle and shine like mirrors. Except that Rebecca, who kept holding her back, decided she knew how to do a better job. "And what are these divorces?" she asked indifferently, pointing to the floor. "Did you just get hired here for no reason?" "In case you didn't know, this floor needs to be mopped several times," Ashley pointed out, "and with 1,000,000 people walking on it, that's hard to do. You've got a lot of nerve. In a job like this, you're supposed to keep your mouth shut." "Why would I do that?" "If I wash floors, I'm not a person," Rebecca said. She didn't say anything. She realized she'd said something stupid, but she really wanted to get hurt, so she did something awful. Ashley still hoped Rebecca was the least bit ashamed of it. Rebecca walked over to Ashley's bucket and kicked it and knocked it over. All the dirty water spilled over the floor. "What the hell?" Ashley shouted angrily, getting to her feet. "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so clumsy," Rebecca laughed and ran off. And Ashley had to scrub the floor for the rest of her shift. She could have finished much sooner if it hadn't been for that bitch. She thought that nasty girls like her would grow up to be nice and understanding, but she was wrong. Very many people never change at all. "Oh, that's it. So either you're going to Hawaii with me, or I'm leaving you," Hannah dictated her terms to Morgan. The man didn't know what to do. She made him terribly angry, and out of emotion he blurted out, "Jesus, run away. Who needs you like this? I won't give you a dime for a vacation. The only one, go find yourself another idiot, here I go," shouted Hannah, throwing things into the suitcase. "I need him, you moron. Yeah, curse me with those words all you want. But if you get out of my house, I'm running away with my heels blazing. I don't want such a husband. One-word man, and you act like a donkey. I'm the one acting like a jackass? You ruined my meeting. Goodbye, you rude bastard." Hannah threw her suitcase out the door and slammed it shut. It wasn't until Morgan sat down on the couch with a headache that he realized what he'd lost. And he got a message on his phone from his manager. He had to show up for a meeting with the Japanese tonight. And he had to have a companion. Showing up without her was like showing up naked and without ID. It was a real disaster. Morgan didn't know what to do with himself. Hannah had gotten Hannah to freak out today, on the eve of such an important negotiation. Disaster. In a panic, Morgan ran out of the house and got into the car and ordered the driver to leave. The man tried to figure out how he could get out of it. When he got out of the car right outside the office, some girl of easy behavior was sitting there, and Morgan even had a thought, maybe take her for the evening. But when he got closer, she smelled like she'd bathed in cow dung. No, it was impossible to find a decent companion a few hours before such an important event. Morgan bit his nails, wondering what to do. It was a bad habit of his. It made his manicure look very ugly. He tried to hide his hands. Often he wore an expensive watch, not to show off, but it was the watch that attracted attention, not the nails. Morgan went up to the second floor, stepped out of the elevator, and stopped. Thoughts were already creeping into his head that he would have to cancel an important meeting. He couldn't go without the girl. "Mr. Whitten." "Hello, Morgan," Rebecca said in a gentle voice. Morgan stared at her. She was pretty. She had a great figure. She had everything where it needed to be, but something about her was repulsive. That's right, she was too stupid. Even Hannah had more brains than that chicken. And he'd hired Rebecca because she was on time for work and served tea well. Hot, just the way he liked it. As it turned out, very few girls could handle such simple duties. Everyone was a type. Morgan had already walked up to his office and saw a huge puddle of dirty water right in front of the door. "What the hell is this mess?" He cursed sharply and looked around. "Excuse me," shouted a girl from across the hall. "I couldn't handle the bucket." Ashley was running toward him with the clean water she'd just now changed. "Sorry again," she said, cleaning up that puddle right under his feet. "Get up," Morgan ordered her. "Who are you? I beg your pardon." "Everyone. I apologize," Ashley said. "I'm a janitor. There was an accident. I accidentally spilled a bucket of dirty water, but I promise this place will be sparkling in 10 minutes. But Morgan didn't care about the puddle right now. He was looking at Ashley, and he was fascinated by the features he noticed first, her straight nose, her cheekbones, and most importantly, her naturalness. "Who are you again?" he asked, pressing the girl. "I don't need your title, just your name." "Ashley," the girl introduced herself, confused. "I work here as a janitor, and you must be here to see our director. I was told he wasn't here. Maybe you're waiting for him in the lobby." "I don't have to wait for anyone," Morgan said sternly. "Take that rag off your head." Ashley obeyed and pulled off the headscarf that hid her thick, dark hair. "It's just right," exclaimed the man. "So, Ashley, consider yourself promoted. Now I'll give you my card, and you'll have to run to the nearest boutique and buy yourself a dress for tonight. Yes, so you won't be embarrassed in front of our foreign guests. After you get your manicure, makeup, and hair done, you'll follow me at 6 o'clock. Ashley nodded silently, as if in anabiosis, taking the card the man held out to her. She even dropped the mop out of fright. Morgan took another look at her from head to toe, and then walked into the office. God, what was she thinking agreeing to this? Ashley couldn't even say anything back, because she had a wife at home. She had a grandmother to help. And now this. The man seemed so serious and majestic that she couldn't refuse him. And now it was too late to refuse, so she had to follow his instructions. Ashley didn't even know where they were going, or why. Or if she would go alone, she was getting scared to the point of trembling. But she decided to try for fear of being fired if she didn't fulfill the client's request. And this was definitely an important client. It was not for nothing that he went through his office and waited for the director even at such an unfortunate moment when she was changing the water. Today was definitely not her day. "Excuse me, how much can I spend?" Ashley asked Linda, walking back down the hall. A stern-looking man was sitting on the couch in front of the principal's office, texting with someone. Frowning, he gave the girl a disdainful look, and then gave her a haughty and cold look. "I don't care if it's $1 million. There's no limit. There are PIN codes for small purchases too. The main thing is to do it before 18:00. Meet me in front of this building at 6:00 sharp, and don't you dare be late." Ashley immediately closed the door and hurried downstairs to find the boutiques. As she ran out of the office, she was caught by a tall man in a suit and black glasses. "Morgan ordered me to escort you," he said sternly. "I'm sorry, who?" Ashley wondered. "The principal," he rolled his eyes. "Or aren't you Ashley?" "Ashley," she said uncertainly, already doubting her own name. So it was the principal. Ashley was stunned. Now it was twice as scary. "I've already found some good clothing boutiques nearby. Let's go," the man said in a bass voice and led her to a shiny black Mercedes. From the car, Ashley called her grandmother and told her that she would be late for work and went to the boutique to look for a dress for some important evening. On the way, the driver and part-time director's bodyguard explained everything to her. Morgan was supposed to discuss a deal with foreigners at a meeting today, and his companions had disappeared. They had to find a replacement. Ashley was it. In a way, she felt good about it. She was the chosen one. She was rarely noticed, and here she was involved in such a story in the center of events. At the boutique, Ashley was immediately surrounded by two pushy consultants who tried to sell her a discounted dress. They were probably just oriented by her appearance, which was certainly awful after such a hard shift. She had, of course, rejected all those discounted dresses. They were just ridiculous. When she lived with Bob, money had been plentiful, so she had taste. Ashley had picked out a few dresses that accentuated her figure perfectly. She wasn't particularly shapely, but she wasn't skinny either. She was a normal girl of slim build, and tight dresses looked great on her. She decided on a classic black dress, matching her shoes and accessories. When Ashley came out to Morgan's driver, he nervously pointed out the time. It turned out she'd spent an hour and a half in the boutique, actually only 15 minutes. They immediately drove on to the beauty salon where Ashley had a hot bath and a massage and manicure. How long had she dreamed of all this? Already she had forgotten what it felt like to feel like a well-groomed woman. After all the treatments, she was immediately started on her hair and makeup. She asked for something subtle, but not boring. It was going to be an evening after all. In general, she needed to look modest but tasteful. Ashley came out of the salon in a black dress, ready to go. The driver took her back to the office, but she stayed in the car, because a few minutes later Morgan called the driver and told him he was going alone. He would be waiting for her outside the restaurant. It was a little uncomfortable driving to a strange place to a strange man. But Ashley had traveled so far that day that going to the restaurant was nothing to her. Morgan was indeed waiting for Ashley outside the restaurant with a bouquet of flowers. The restaurant itself was one story and almost all glass, but it certainly looked rich, to say the least. The gold chandeliers, floors, and mirrors were the most appropriate for this Morgan, and it was all decorated very pompously. Ashley had never been in such places before. She had to go to restaurants sometimes, of course, but Bob rarely invited her. They were ushered into a private room where there was a large round table for 7. Morgan kindly seated Ashley at the table and sat down next to her. They waited for his fellow foreigners. Somehow they were running late. "Are you nervous?" the principal suddenly asked. In fact, Ashley was terribly nervous. Her hands were shaking. She promised herself she'd behave herself. This would never happen again in her life. In fact, sitting next to Morgan, she didn't feel as scared as she had felt before. Once she saw him now, he didn't seem like a principal anymore. They were almost the same age, but because of his gruff tone in the office, Ashley was actually afraid of him. After all, there was no way to answer anything later. Luckily, they didn't know each other that much so he could be nice to her, but he had been very cold to her in the office, which of course had affected her attitude toward him. "Not at all," Ashley lied. "You look very spectacular," the man said honestly, looking at the girl. Admittedly, she rarely received such glances from the opposite sex now. Ashley dressed modestly and painted in such a way that her beauty was hidden from the eyes of others. It was a good idea to get herself in order once, and then she could claim to be a rich man's girlfriend. She liked that kind of attention. She felt more confident when men complimented her. "Not a waste of money," Ashley joked. "The important thing is that I got it done by 6 in the morning." "I have to admit, I expected worse," Morgan said. "But listen, don't wear that headscarf again, please. It doesn't look good on you. Your hair is very beautiful and thick. But it's uncomfortable to work with your head uncovered," said Ashley. "Then I'll put you in another position where you can feel more free and not have to wear such ridiculous and horrible outfits." It was a very ordinary janitor's outfit. Ashley smiled. "I am a cleaning lady." "You don't use that word around here again," Morgan said. "I don't want you to be a secretary," Ashley suddenly said firmly. The last thing she wanted was to be a dumbass secretary who brought coffee and answered phones for clients. It was a horrible job. She'd rather work as a janitor for the rest of her life than that. Morgan looked at her in surprise, but didn't have time to say anything. 3 Japanese men, accompanied by an interpreter, entered the room. Ashley realized he was wearing glasses, but when they sat down at the table and the man took off his glasses, the girl almost had a heart attack. In front of her sat Bob himself, and apparently he didn't recognize her at first, and neither did she recognize him. His eyes only widened when Morgan introduced Ashley. "This is Ashley, my girlfriend," the principal said, shaking the girl's hand with everyone. Immediately, Ashley's cheeks flushed. She didn't think she would be playing the role of her boss's girlfriend. Bob looked at her with bewilderment and some new expression in his eyes that she didn't understand. Ashley tried not to look at him at all to avoid the awkwardness. Suddenly, the memories came flooding back to her. She wanted to burst into tears at the table, but she held back. She'd promised herself she'd hold it together, no matter what happened. Did it hurt? Very much. But in that moment, she felt like a soldier. She couldn't let Morgan down. He was counting on her. All in all, the meeting went more or less normally. Morgan was very actively discussing something with his foreign partners, and Bob was translating it. To give him credit, he was doing a good job. Bob kept glancing at Ashley throughout the evening, but he didn't seem to know her any better than anyone else in the room. Probably didn't want to get into it right here. He probably had a lot of questions. Ashley didn't have any at all. He was a translator, and he was still a translator, and his personal life was of no interest to the girl. Not anymore. "So well, it's time to call it a night," Morgan summarized. He got up from the table and shook hands with all 4 of them, including Bob. "It was a pleasure to meet you. I hope to see you among our partners." The Japanese bowed to him as a courtesy and left. As soon as the last person left that VIP lounge, Ashley ran to the restroom. There was no more strength to hold back the tears. Memories came over her in such a way that she could no longer resist. She wanted to sob again because of what Bob had done to her, and more importantly, for what? For giving him a son. Ashley was sitting in a stall when she heard the restroom door ajar. "Ashley, are you in here?" a familiar voice asked. She remained silent, but Morgan kept up with her. "Answer it, please." Ashley couldn't lie to him, and she couldn't keep quiet any longer, so she responded. "You're not doing well, are you? Was there something wrong with the food?" he asked cautiously. Ashley panicked. He must have thought she was poisoned. It couldn't be worse. She couldn't take the embarrassment. "No, I just felt sick," she tried to get out of it. "Did I say something wrong?" No, it's just stress. I'm sorry, I don't go to these things very often." There was a chuckle from outside the door. "Yeah, it's really an unusual day. It's also the first time I've ever invited a stranger to such an important meeting. Then let's get this over with. Go to your girlfriend, she's probably waiting for you," Ashley hinted. "We broke up. I'm not going to put up with any more of her behavior," Morgan said. "Look, I don't really like talking to the door. Why don't you get out?" Ashley felt a little uncomfortable too. It was the first time she'd ever talked to a man in a bathroom stall. It even made it a little funny. She wiped away her tears, stood up, collected her thoughts, and opened the door. A confused Morgan was looking at her. She never thought she would see him in such an odd position. He seemed very stiff in the office, but here he was so vulnerable and confused that she wanted to hug him and feel sorry for him like a destitute kitten. He looked at Ashley like he wanted to memorize her with his gaze. "Have you been crying?" he asked worriedly, as if he really cared. "I told you I was just worried." Ashley tried to smile. "You've got..." He didn't finish, but touched the corner of her lips with his fingers. "May I?" Ashley nodded. She must be so sloppy, she thought, that she didn't even know how to use a napkin to remove food from her lips. He ran his fingers gently over the right corner of her lips and waved a circle. "That's it," he smiled victoriously at that second. The lighting fell on his eyes. They were blue, blue like the ocean or the abyss. It was so scary to look into them. What if you drowned? But Ashley couldn't look away from them. In a moment, however, the fairy tale was gone when he straightened his back and his eyes became night again. Only then did the girl wake up. "I have to go," Ashley said, trying to gently pull him away so she could walk toward the exit. Can't we stay a little longer?" he asked with hope in his voice. "I need to feed my baby," she answered honestly, and got a surprised look. What did he expect? They didn't know each other, and this whole performance was just to save his reputation. Ashley still didn't understand why she was wasting her time with a stranger. She had thought he was their client at first, and then she realized he was the boss, or she would have fired him. Anyway, she ran away like a rat from a sinking ship, and she wasn't ashamed. She didn't have to continue the evening with her boss. She'd done her duty. That was enough. All the way back, Ashley cried, unable to control her feelings again. And the worst part was that she didn't even realize why she was sad. Did she really want to go back so badly? The answer came the next morning, around 9:00, when everyone was asleep and Ashley was getting ready for work. There was a knock on the door. What kind of idiot would knock when there was a bell for that? I wanted to chase this madman off the doorstep and get on with my business. But when Ashley opened the door, her body went stiff. The first thing she saw was a huge bouquet of flowers, and behind him stood Bob. "What are you doing here?" Ashley asked sternly, trying to muffle her feelings and slow the rhythm of her beating heart. "Hi," Bob said naively, childishly. "I was just passing by and thought I'd stop by." He handed the girl the bouquet of flowers she didn't need. Ashley placed it on the floor next to her, showing how she felt about this man. "I thought at first you were living with that man," Bob continued. "What man?" Ashley didn't understand. "Morgan. I thought you were his girlfriend. But then I did some checking and realized that you were living with your grandmother now. I already knew the address. I'm glad you decided to try your hand at detective work, and you did, but I don't really care how you found me." All Ashley felt now was hatred for the man. She realized that there was no room left in her heart for love for this lowlife. She looked into his eyes and wanted to burn him with her gaze. Morgan's eyes seemed so much more attractive and deeper to her than those lifeless gray crystals. "So why did you come?" Ashley forced herself to ask, because Bob just stood there, silent. "Ashley," he said softly, almost in a whisper. She used to like the way he said her name, but today she wanted to shut him up. "I want to renew our relationship." The suggestion made her laugh for some reason, and he wouldn't ask for her wish. Why should he? Ashley laughed haughtily. It was a stupid thing to do back then. "I still love you, Ashley. Please come back to me. Our son shouldn't have to grow up without a father." And he found out about his son. Who told him all this? Did they write her biography on the internet and leak all her information down to her address? Ashley thought. "I don't want to see you," Ashley said angrily, through gritted teeth, emphasizing each word so that the jerk would remember them forever. "Ashley, you know what it's like to grow up without a father." Bob began to manipulate her. But Ashley had known all these tricks for a long time. She'd just been manipulated at the university. She wouldn't fall for it. "It's all lies. Get out," Ashley snapped at him. The girl just slammed the door in his face. He'd lost his way. Now she was standing by the door, waiting for him to leave, peeking through the peephole. Bob staggered for a moment. Then he realized he was out of luck and took the elevator downstairs. And Ashley suddenly felt so sick. Her head ached and tears sprang from her eyes. She slid down under the door and collapsed to the floor. It seemed she had never been in so much pain before, and she'd thought those wounds had healed long ago. Ashley heard a rustle in one of the rooms. Her grandmother was awake too. Ashley immediately got to her feet and pretended that nothing had happened. "Why are you standing at the door?" Grandma asked. Then she turned her gaze to the flowers Ashley had forgotten to hide. "Are they from your boyfriend?" she asked, smiling slyly. What boyfriend, she wondered. Did she really hear everything? "Well, who did you go out with yesterday?" "I know that you were not at work late," said the grandmother. Everything became obvious at once. "Well, tell me, who's chasing you?" "Trying to save the situation and hide the information about Bob's arrival," Ashley said. "My boss asked me out." Grandma leaned against the wall. So shocked was she by the news. "You're going out with him tonight," she hoped. Ashley was starting to get annoyed by these questions. It was like she was 16 to report back. "No, of course not." "I turned him down," Ashley said immediately. "It's not right for me, a cleaning lady, to date my boss." "Oh, you fool," Granny exhaled disappointedly. Of course, she thought about a second date, or rather, she'd had meetings, of course. She'd even had dreams about Morgan. And now, after Bob's arrival, those thoughts were starting to turn into realized desires. God forbid meeting Morgan at this rate will turn into obsessive dreams, Ashley thought. Glancing at her watch, she hurried to work. Ashley had never been late, so she didn't want to be late this time. She got to the office on time and was immediately confronted by Rebecca, who looked at her as if Ashley had turned into a smelly, dirty rat. "I don't know how you got Morgan down, but he's waiting for you in his office tonight," Rebecca said with disgust in her voice. Ashley just nodded. She didn't want to continue this disgusting conversation. As she was walking toward her office, Rebecca called out to her. "You be careful with him. If you do anything wrong, you'll get fired," she shouted angrily, giggling. How annoying such vulgar and low things were, Ashley thought. She knocked on the office door and immediately heard the goodness to enter. "Hello, Morgan. You paged," the girl asked in a perfectly normal voice. Why should she be afraid? She's just a janitor. He's not going to fire her after that bathroom tantrum last night. "Hi, Ashley." The man smiled. "Have a seat." He reached for the carafe and offered Ashley some water. Ashley politely declined. What else is there to drink in the principal's office? Even if it's just water, what if I spill it and embarrass myself? No way. "All right," Morgan said. "In that case, I'll get right to the point. You were very helpful yesterday, and I'd like to thank you." "I don't need money," Ashley said immediately, sure that that was what he meant. Morgan looked at her with surprise and even a twinge of indignation. Ashley seemed to have made a mistake in her judgment. No, he protested immediately. "No money. I just wanted to give you a promotion." Yeah, that sounded more pleasant. Ashley didn't care what he did, as long as it paid a salary. And if there was an opportunity for a raise, it's a no-brainer. "I asked my team to do a little research on you. Turns out you're such a secretive person. I didn't find out much about you," Morgan laughed. "Why would a janitor tell you anything about herself? As long as she does her job well." "That's enough," Ashley countered. Yes, the boss continued to smile. "Anyway, I'd like to offer you the position of my assistant." "Assistant?" Ashley asked in bewilderment. It was a position she'd never encountered before. "Yes, let's call it that." The boss nodded. "You could accompany me to all my meetings, take care of some small things for me, make arrangements with people. I used to do it myself, but as you know, our company is expanding, and I need an assistant." The offer sounded great. Ashley would love to do it, but it would take up so much time. No one to take care of her son. No, it wasn't the right position for her. "I regret to say no," Ashley said clearly and courteously. "I don't have the time to do all this." "Why not?" Morgan wondered. He seemed to have forgotten what the girl had told him yesterday. He must have thought she was an unmarried student just looking for a chance to meet someone. "I have a baby?" Ashley said. It sounded pathetic, she said, ashamed, but it couldn't be helped. Morgan stared at her in silence for a long moment, and then he said, "If you work the same amount of hours in the same days, will you do it?" That sounded tempting. If she got a raise, kept the same hours, and worked in a more interesting position, it's a miracle. "Should I think about it?" Ashley replied. She didn't want to say yes right away. She needed to discuss it with her grandmother, weigh the pros and cons. "Yes," Morgan said, a little resentfully. If it were Ashley, she'd be offended too. He'd be offended too. Ashley would be too if he were Ashley. But I don't think it'll last. There's a lot of people applying for this job right now. I've got plenty of good candidates I could consider. Now she's feeling a little hurt. Had the spark that had flown between them yesterday been just her fantasy? Had he done it just to thank her for her help yesterday? In fact, that was probably the case. Ashley just couldn't get enough male attention, so she made up the idea that absolutely everyone needed it. And the situation with Bob this morning had given her a lot of confidence. She really hoped that someone needed her, that finally it wasn't her running around after someone, but everyone after her. "Okay, I'll answer it tonight," Ashley said frustratedly, and was getting up to leave when Morgan grabbed her wrist. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Please leave me alone." Ashley didn't understand what he wanted. "Well, honored your request. Maybe you need some support right now. You don't want to work with me, or do you really need to think about it?" he asked quite seriously. "I really need to think about it. I have to discuss it with my family." "Oh, I see," Morgan answered frustratedly. Apparently he was not satisfied with this answer, but he could think of no other question to get to the point. "Well, am I going to go?" the girl asked with a smile. "Yes." Of course, Morgan lifted the corners of his lips. Ashley was already heading for the exit when he called out to her again. Ashley. He corrected himself. Excuse me, can I walk with you after my shift? Unless you're in a hurry. That amused Ashley. It felt like Morgan was trying to latch onto something to walk with her. It made her feel good somehow. Maybe she hadn't gotten herself anything after all. I can walk a little, Ashley agreed. Morgan's eyes lit up. Then I'll meet you in my office today. As soon as your shift is over, he replied formally, but with a smile of satisfaction. Ashley walked out the door and pressed herself against the wall. Her heart was pounding frantically. Was she really experiencing those trembling feelings again? She hadn't felt this way since her breakup with Bob, and now she longed to see Morgan more than anything in the world. Rebecca didn't see Ashley again that day, so she finished work at 6:00 p.m. As Ashley reached for the mop, she glanced at herself in the mirror. No, you can't go out like that. She'd looked much better yesterday. What if the whole thing evaporated and the carriage turned into a pumpkin? I couldn't let that happen. I had to dial Isabella's number. Girl, help me out. I told her everything that had happened in the last 2 days. Isabella rushed to rescue her friend from the situation and immediately arrived at the office 15 minutes later and handed Ashley some clothes. Ashley changed right in the restroom. This day's dress was a soft pink cocktail dress. Morgan was going to love it. Where do you think you're going with that outfit? Rebecca laughed, looking over at Ashley as she walked toward Morgan's office. What, did Morgan find a new one already? No, Ashley tolerated it, but she couldn't take the insults anymore. Rebecca had lost all sense of shame. Why don't you look at yourself first? Ashley smiled. She hadn't done that for herself, had her buttocks and breasts pumped up. Rebecca was angry, which made the wrinkles on her face more visible. You got a lot of attitude, you little mongrel. I may be a mongrel, but I can rise to any position I want, and you can sit here all your life, serving tea. How dare you? Get out of here. I'll share. The door opened and Morgan came out of the office. He was wearing a different suit today, but he still looked amazing. Rebecca, he saw his secretary, I'm so glad you stopped by to mop my office. What but? That's Ashley's job, isn't it? Rebecca was outraged. I fired her today, Morgan smiled and led Ashley to the elevator. She'd never felt such a good feeling of victory before. They'd had a great time that night, and Ashley had decided to move on to a new position as his assistant. But their relationship wasn't just about work. Morgan started asking her out more and more often, courting her. His first coolest act, which Ashley will never forget, was when he gave her son a radio-controlled racing car. That toy was still a little out of age for him, but within a year, Liam was playing with it full-time. At the same time, about a year later, Morgan proposed to Ashley. It was so beautiful that she still remembered that day as one of the happiest of her life. He then proposed to take the whole family on vacation. Liam's grandmother and even the dog went with them, as a reminder of her past unhappy love. And so, on the shore of a private beach under the cover of night, when the moon was the size of an entire saucer and shone like 1,000 stars, he got down on one knee and asked for her hand in marriage. Well, of course, she said yes. After such a marvelous marriage proposal, how could one refuse? They were married exactly 1 month later. Ashley had told him about her desire to move to the sea. He'd been hesitant at first. After all, his business was in the city. But later he came to the conclusion that he could manage the company remotely. That's how Ashley ended up at the sea. Her grandmother was also happy to spend the last years of her life on a sandy beach. And how did you know I was the one? Ashley asked, as the two of them sat by the sea, throwing pebbles and shells at it. I just saw it, Morgan laughed. You didn't like my headscarf. I made it myself, by the way. Let's be honest, it really didn't suit you. This whole job didn't suit you. You're much better suited to be a psychologist. You're just made for it. He was right. Ashley was really passionate about it. She loved helping people, explaining to them how to deal with stress and problems. It inspired her. After all, she could make this world a much better place, a world without violence and grief. So Ashley's life was once again divided into before and after when she had to make a choice. Her life was now a paradise. Walking into her sister's room to share the good news, Chris was stunned. Her boyfriend had popped out of her sister's bedroom. Why are you always so lucky? Emma looked enviously at her older sister, who was trying on a wedding dress in front of the mirror. You're marrying the most handsome guy in town. Maybe we'll go to your wedding soon. Chris turned to her sister. Gene Thompson has his eyes on you, and you don't even pay attention to him. He's a good guy, a hard worker. He's helping his father build his house, keeps an eye on his little brothers. It's obvious that he'll make a good husband and father." "Oh, come on," Emma said. "You can't move him. He'll just live in the city and work as a truck driver all his life. I want to go to New York after high school. I'm sure I'll find a promising fiancé there." Maggie, the girl's mother, came into the room. She said the word promising. "What does it mean?" Emma frowned. "Well, Mom, don't you get it? It's a man who aspires to become rich, successful, and even powerful." "Does that mean we're all unpromising?" Maggie laughed. "My father works on a tractor. I carry the mail. Chris went to college and now teaches little kids to read and write. What about us?" Emma said nothing, shook her head, and ran out of the house. "She's young," Maggie sighed. "The wind is in her head. Nothing. Life will teach her." "Well, bride," she turned to her eldest daughter, "we're a week away from the wedding, and we've got a lot to do. We have to butcher a piglet for meat, pluck chickens, and also make sure my father doesn't try the moonshine before he's ready. I know him." She turned and left the room, closing the door behind her. "Yes, in a week, I'll be not just a bride, but a wife," said Chris. She carefully hung the wedding dress on the rack and put it in the closet. "Oh, I'm so happy." She twirled around the room and then sat down on the couch and thought. Chris had started dating Aiden when she started working at the village school. They knew each other before that, of course, because they lived in the same town and went to the same school. Aiden then dated Lexi Smith, who even saw him off to the army and promised to wait for him. Only her parents were against her marrying Aiden. They moved to another town and took their daughter with them without leaving an address. To be honest, Aiden hadn't really worried about it when he came back from the army. There were plenty of pretty girls in town. And he's a good-looking guy. He's not going to be alone. He got a job on a farm, driving milk to town. He made a good living with an extra income, lived with his elderly mother, and he was in no hurry to get married. Chris, or rather Chris Nick, he saw on September 1st, when he took his nephew to first grade. Aiden's older sister was in the maternity hospital at the time, giving birth to her third child. Her husband, Alex, had been sent to town for parts, and her mother was sick after a long day's work, and her legs were swollen. Aiden had to drive Jaden to school himself. Chris took an instant liking to Aiden. She was dressed in a strict business suit, and she was trying to keep herself as solid as an elementary school teacher should. But it was obvious that she was very nervous. Aiden liked her slim figure, her beautiful legs and eyes. She was different from the other girls in town. He began to pass by the school more and more often, if time allowed, and saw in the window how Chris Nick was teaching a lesson, passionately telling something, and the students were listening to her attentively. "Did you have a crush on Watson?" his mother asked him once. "I see you're not a fool. Watson is a good girl, educated and hardworking. Her mother Mary boasts of her daughter Mealy. She says she's raised a good assistant, not like their youngest Emma." Her mother waved her hand. "She's useless. She won't know how she'll finish school. She doesn't want to study at all, only disgraces her sister. I don't know when she'll get smart. Oh, son, if you'd gotten married, we'd probably have kids. She'd make a better wife," her mother said of Chris. "I'll marry her," Aiden laughed. "You're right, Mother. It's time for me to start a family. Freedom is a drag. I'll just keep picking up girls." Aiden met Chris several times when she left school and walked her home. Then he asked her to the movies, and a month later he asked her to marry him. To his surprise, Chris agreed and even admitted that she liked him for a long time, when they were in school. In a week, she would become his lawfully wedded wife and move in with her husband. Chris got up from the couch and did the usual household chores. Her mother returned from the yard, her father came home from work, and Emma wasn't home again until late afternoon. However, everyone was used to it and sat down to dinner without her. The wedding was fun, only Chris was a little embarrassed. She was not used to such attention to herself, and when they shouted bitter, she shamefully covered herself with a veil. Aiden, on the contrary, was happy when drunken guests forced the bride and groom to kiss in public and gently pressed Chris to himself, trying to make the kiss last as long as possible. Emma frowned and envied her older sister again. thinking that she was unworthy of a guy like Aiden Wright. And when the young people were escorted into the house where they were to spend their wedding night, she ran away to the river bank and cried there for a long time, saying angrily, "It's all right, I'll prove it to you all." What and to whom Emma would prove, she herself did not yet understand, but she knew only one thing, that Chris would soon be desperately jealous of her too. Her mother-in-law accepted her daughter-in-law well, and even began to call her daughter. But Mary was still looking at her son-in-law, and he rarely visited her mother-in-law and father-in-law, meeting with them only on big holidays. Emma was always at home on such days, trying to sit close to Aiden at the table, but he paid no attention to her, considering her the youngest, as she was now called. After graduating from high school, Emma received a certificate with only C's in all subjects and wondered what she should do next. She would not be accepted to an institute or technical school with such marks, and she did not want to stay in the city. "What do you think?" her friend Annie Simpson once asked her. "Go into hairdressing, you'll always have money. You said yourself that as a child you liked to cut your dolls, and once you cut Chris's hair while she was sleeping." Yeah, Emma laughed. "I did. My mother toweled me off so hard I couldn't sit up, and Chris cried and hid in the barn. She wore a scarf on her head for 3 months. They say they even provide dormitory accommodation for non-residents after they enter the school," Annie continued to insist. "So you don't have to worry about housing, and they pay a stipend, and there, and then, and then. You can work part-time. It's a wonderful life. Better than living in the city and working on a farm." "Why?" Emma jumped at the idea. "Then we could get a job at a salon and do fancy hairstyles." She dreamed, "I've seen such high hairstyles in a magazine." "How did you decide?" "I'm going to be a hairdresser," she announced. To the surprise of her parents and Emma herself, after accepting the documents at the school and passing the entrance exams, she was enrolled in the first course in the specialty of hairdressing. Studying was to be only 1 year and 10 months. But Emma almost did not expel after the first semester for failure, because she decided that just like in school, she will rarely attend classes, and teachers will still put her grades, even if 3, so as not to spoil the statistics. But in the school was all different, so Emma had to urgently pass all credits and more responsible attitude to study. Aiden came to the dormitory once every 2 weeks to give Emma groceries and a small amount of money, which Maggie sent to her, taking care of her youngest daughter. She wrote in the note that Emma should not waste the money, save up, or her life might turn out differently. But Emma went straight to the store and bought herself a new lipstick, inexpensive jewelry, and if she was lucky, a new blouse. She didn't think about the future. She tried to live here and now, and her mother would send her money. She didn't come to town anymore. She was bored there, but she plunged headlong into city life. There were new girlfriends with whom Emma went to the movies or to the disco, and guys were paying attention to her. Only they were newcomers like her, and Emma called them by a word she liked very much: unpromising. She even managed to get one of them pregnant. But she didn't hesitate long, took a referral from the hospital and got rid of the unwanted child. Grieve about it did not become, and special conclusions for themselves did not make, because just 6 months later visited the hospital again. But Chris, unlike her younger sister, was very worried that she and her husband still had no children. They had been living together for 2 years, and every month Chris waited with hope that now it would turn out that she was expecting a child. But alas, time passed, and the long-awaited pregnancy did not come. Aiden and all the family, as they could, reassured Chris. But she saw that her husband and mother-in-law and parents are looking forward to the firstborn, but could not please them yet. She and Aiden had gone through a full examination and all the tests. They said that Chris and her husband were completely healthy, and advised to wait a little longer and then take some drastic measures. Mother-in-law advised Chris to go to a witch doctor living in a neighboring town. Allegedly, she helped many people in women's issues. But Chris continued to hope that even without magical influence will soon be able to become a mom. One weekend, Emma came home to pick up some things. She had already graduated from college, had a job at a men's barber shop, and was sharing a small apartment with a friend. She needed a pillow, blankets, linens, and some dishes. These she wanted to ask her mother for so she wouldn't have to spend extra money to buy the necessities. As she hugged her younger sister, Chris complained that she couldn't get pregnant, and she was afraid that Aiden might leave her because of it. "I wish I had your problems," Emma sighed. "You've got a lot to be sad about. The diapers, the cradles, the sleepless nights. What do you need it for? You've got so many kids in your class. Don't you get tired of teaching and raising them every day?" "You don't understand," Chris looked at her sister reproachfully. "Your own baby. It's a part of you, your blood daughter. When you become a mom, you'll find out for yourself." "And what else?" Emma shrugged her shoulders. "Am I going to ruin my life for the sake of a screaming child? I want to live brightly, to dress nicely, to go out to restaurants, not to stand around the crib and cook porridge for days and nights." "That's silly," Chris sighed. "You're thinking about the wrong thing. When you have a family, you'll talk differently. Do you have anyone in mind? You could bring them to us, introduce them to us." "It's nothing serious," Emma said. "I got a job at a men's barbershop on purpose. I thought I'd meet someone there. But in the end, only pensioners and school children come to get their hair cut. I should choose a better salon, go to work there. They have a better crowd." In the morning, Aiden drove Emma into town with all the things she'd packed and what her mother had given her. Even the beautiful curtains she'd taken out of her trunk, which she'd saved for a special occasion. "You need them more in town," she said to her daughter. "I don't know who will come to visit, so you won't be ashamed in front of people. I'll buy some fabric at the store and sew something for the kitchen. You go behind the curtains and look for napkins for the table," her mother said. "When Aiden goes to town next time, he will bring everything for you." After that, Emma never came to the village again. Aiden started coming home from town later and later. Chris was worried, and often went outside the gate, staring into the distance. Aiden's explanation for his late return was that his car had broken down, that he'd been offered a little extra work, or that he was so tired that he'd stopped on the side of the road and rested a little. Chris believed her husband, felt sorry for him, and could not even think that he deceived her. One day, Chris was called into town for a meeting of elementary school teachers. She felt bad from the morning, dizzy and nauseous, but Chris could not go. As soon as she left the City Department of Public Education, she was dizzy again, and she lost consciousness. She woke up in the ambulance that was taking her to the hospital. "What's wrong with me?" she whispered with just her lips. "I'm dying." "Well, honey, we will not let you die," laughed the woman in a white coat. "But we can't make a diagnosis yet. In the hospital, you will find out everything." In the emergency room, Chris took tests and was sent to the examination room, from which she came out, not believing what she had just been told. "Oh my God," she covered her face with her hands. "I can't be pregnant." She was offered to stay at the hospital for more tests, but Chris refused. She knew she would be worried at home because of her absence, so she hurried to the bus station. But as soon as she reached it, she saw that the last bus heading in her direction had already disappeared around the corner, leaving behind smoke from the exhaust pipe. What to do? Chris looked around, hoping to find someone she knew, but the bus station was empty. Well, she'd have to spend the night at Emma's. "I'll go home tomorrow morning," she thought, and walked to the bus stop. As Chris neared the house where her younger sister Emma lived, she saw the truck labeled Milk where Aiden worked. "Oh, that's how great it is." Chris got excited and picked up her pace. Aiden must have stopped at Emma's for dinner or tea on the way. And now he and I are going home together. Lucky me, I'll give them both a good time to hear the news. As for the baby, Aiden Smith would soon be a father, and Emma would have a nephew or niece. Reaching the right floor, Chris pressed the bell button. "Who's there?" She heard her sister's disgruntled voice. The neighbor needed something again. The door swung open, and Emma appeared on the doorstep in a short, transparent robe. "Is that you? Confused?" she asked when she saw Chris. "Hi, sis," she exclaimed happily. "You didn't expect to see me. I came for a meeting. And then, well, I'll tell you later. Why do you keep me on the doorstep? Let me through." "We told you that," Emma smirked, blocking the entrance to the apartment. "Why don't you come over tomorrow?" "What are you doing?" Chris was surprised. "I'll be in the village tomorrow. What's wrong with you?" She looked anxiously at her sister, who was very pale. "Isn't she ill?" Yes, Emma nodded hastily. You know, there's a virus going around. I'm afraid you'll catch it. You go home, and when I get better, I'll come to you myself. Honey, who are you talking to for so long? Chris heard the gentle voice of her husband. Let's go to bed. I'm waiting for you, or I'll have to go home soon. What? Chris pushed Emma away and headed into the room with determination. Seeing his wife, Aiden covered himself with a blanket and was afraid to even look out. What's that? Chris turned to her sister. What is my husband doing in your bed? Well, now that you've found out, Emma sat back in her chair with her foot on the leg. There's no reason to hide. Get out and get dressed. She shouted at Aiden. The three of us can talk about this, since you couldn't tell Chris, Emma said. I have nothing to say to you. Chris turned and walked toward the exit. Wait, Emma grabbed her arm. I want to tell you that Aiden and I are having a baby. You still haven't been able to give him a baby. I get it, Chris said, then bit her lower lip. Well, so be it. Know that not only do I now have no husband, but no sister. She opened the door and quickly walked out of the apartment. Chris walked down the street, unable to see anything from crying. She almost got hit by a car as she crossed the road. Chris. Adrian, the driver who was driving the chairman, jumped out of the car. I almost ran you over. What happened? He saw tears in her eyes. Did someone die? Yes, Chris nodded her head. Yes, they did. You get in. Get in, Adrian fidgeted, swinging open the front door of the car. I'm on my way back from the train station to drop off Alex and his wife Maggie. They were on vacation at the resort. I wanted to stop by a friend's house. He lives here in town. I thought I'd drive back to the village tonight and then in the morning. Well, if that's the case, we'll go there right away. So who died here? Was it Father Nick? I thought I saw him this morning. He was in good health. No, not Father. Chris shook her head tiredly. Maggie's mother. Adrian almost let go of the steering wheel. How sad, he exclaimed. My husband and my sister are dead, Chris cried. Dead to me, she said. They drove the rest of the way in silence. The whole village was buzzing like an alarmed beehive. When Chris learned that Aiden Smith had become involved with Emma Watson and was expecting a child with her, she told only her mother Maggie and asked her not to tell anyone. But Maggie could not resist, shared the news with her neighbor, and she told everyone else. Everyone discussed Aiden Smith with Emma Watson and felt sorry for Chris, whom they respected very much. Chris took her things and went to live at her parents' house, and Aiden, returning to the village in the morning, wrote a letter of resignation. He turned in his truck, got his paycheck the same day, and took the last bus back to town. Maggie tried to talk to him, to talk some sense into him, but he only waved her away, telling her to stay out of his life. He'd figure it out on his own. Chris didn't leave the house for a week. Good thing school was out. It was vacation time. Maggie was worried about her daughter, afraid she'd do something to herself. But one evening, Chris walked into the kitchen. At the table just sat her mother and Father Nick, and raising her head proudly said, No matter what happens, I have something to live for. Mom, Dad, you don't know this yet, but I'm expecting a baby. I'm going to raise it on my own. I hope you'll help me. And please don't mention my ex-husband or my ex-sister's name in this house again. And if Emma shows up here, I will leave this house. Oh, my daughter. Maggie went to Chris. What a joy. She turned to her husband. Why are you sitting there? Go hug your daughter, as, after all, soon to be a grandfather. You this, daughter, Nick ineptly hugged Chris. You can always count on us. And I'm not letting Emma on my doorstep. She's disgraced us all over the village, the whore. He swore harshly. Aiden and Emma never came back to the village, and there was no news of them. Maggie wanted to go into town to find out anything about the prodigal daughter. But as soon as she mentioned it to her husband, Nick looked at her so much that it became clear to her that it was better not to meet with the youngest daughter at all. Chris's pregnancy went well. She went to work until the birth and helped her mother in the household. And in due time, Chris gave birth to a daughter, which she named Marina. Grandmother and grandfather did not dote on her granddaughter. They got up to her at night so that Chris could sleep. Maggie even quit her job as a letter carrier to look after the girl. And Chris was already back at work on September 1st. After school, she was just in the teacher's lounge when a young man walked in and politely greeted everyone, introduced himself as Michael, and announced that he would be teaching high school history and geography. The young teachers immediately took out their mirrors, fixed their hairstyles and painted their lips, while the others looked at the new teacher with interest and nodded approvingly. The situation is just like in the movie Big Break, teacher Jessica whispered to Chris. Remember, Nestor was also the only man in the girls' group. No, I haven't seen that movie, Chris shrugged. That's too bad, Jessica sighed. There's a lot to learn from the current generation of educators. Chris shrugged again and looked at her watch. It was time to go and feed Marina. Excuse me, can you tell me how to get to the post office? She heard a man's voice behind her. Chris turned around and saw Michael, who was looking at her, smiling. Come on, I'll walk you out, she said. I'm on my way. On the way they talked, and Chris learned that Michael came to work in their village for a reason. In the city he has an ex-wife, and most importantly a daughter, Emily, whom he misses very much. So why did you leave them? Chris wondered. Would have stayed in the city and met with his daughter. The proverbial housing issue, Michael grinned. After the divorce, I left the apartment to my wife, and I lived with one friend, then another, then my parents. When my ex-wife got an apartment from the state, where my daughter lives now, I found out that your school needed a teacher. And I came here. So I came here. I've already been assigned a house, and I'm trying to get settled in. Here's the post office, Chris pointed to the blue-painted doors. Over there is the library. She pointed to the brick building again. There's also the clubhouse where our young people hang out. And once a week on weekends you can watch a movie. I'll definitely check out the library, Michael nodded. When I lived in the orphanage, I spent a lot of time reading books. I even got the nickname the bookseller for that. I especially liked history and travel books. I remember literally reading Robinson Crusoe, The Mysterious Island, Captain Grant's Children. Oh, I always liked those books too. Chris rejoiced. My mom used to get mad at me because I'd cover myself with a blanket, turn on a flashlight, and read all night until dawn. You know, she looked at Michael, you should come and visit us. You don't know anyone here, and I'll introduce you to my parents and my daughter. She's just a little girl, though. Do you have a daughter? Michael asked with interest and immediately became sad. Thank you for the invitation, but I'm not comfortable. I didn't have time to come here, and now I'm asking for a visit. This isn't the city. Chris got mad. We keep things simple. A new person in the village, you have to invite him to visit, feed him, ask him questions, and if necessary, help him. There's our house. Chris pointed to the green fence at the end of the street. Daddy painted it himself. No one else has one like it. Thank you, Michael said again. He said goodbye and went into the building where the post office was. You know we have a new teacher at school. Chris literally ran into the house. A man. He's had some kind of family tragedy, so he came to our village. Wait, don't touch that. Maggie frowned. Better feed the baby. Can't you hear Marina crying? She must be hungry. Now, Chris quickly washed her hands and took her daughter in her arms. Well, why did you scream, my beauty? Chris said affectionately. Now Mommy will feed you and you will calm down. After feeding, Chris put her daughter back in the crib, and she fell asleep immediately. Maggie put a plate of food in front of Chris. Who did you have at school? Chris told about Michael. And at the end, she added, You know, I feel sorry for him. He's so lonely and his eyes are so sad. You can tell he's very worried about leaving town, and most importantly, his beloved daughter. So invite him to visit us. Maggie poured tea into a cup and sat down opposite her daughter. You know you should always support people, especially those who need it. Who knows what's on your Michael's mind? Why don't you let him come over tomorrow night? I'll bake some pies. Get some from the cellar. He's probably got nothing to eat at home. Maybe I could help him with his chores. We should clean the house, mop the floors. Why didn't you find out right away? I didn't think about it. Chris lowered her head. You see, Maggie nodded. It's good that you have a mother. Someone to think about it. From the orphanage, you say? She wondered. Oh, to know I've never seen a mother's affection. And why such a punishment for a good man? She took an empty bucket from the bench and went out into the yard. Mom's right, Chris thought as she finished her tea. How could she not have offered to help right away? And she'll think we're all indifferent. The next day, Chris was still hesitant to ask Michael to come over. Only when the two of them were alone in the teacher's lounge after class did she dare. I told my parents about you yesterday, and they are inviting you to visit. My mom has already put the dough for the pies this morning to treat you. So we're waiting for you tonight, Chris exhaled with relief. I can't say no to pies, Michael laughed. I'll be sure to stop by. Thanks for the invitation. When she had finished her chores, Chris began to set the table. She laid the tablecloth and took out the table set, which her mother had taken great care to display only on special occasions. It's just like preparing the groom's party, Maggie joked. I've had enough of fiancés. Chris sighed heavily. I'm not going to get married again. I've had enough once. Don't be so sure, Maggie shook her head. You're still young. Anything can happen in life. As they say, fate will find you behind the stove. Chris wanted to answer her mother, but saw through the window as the gate opened, and Michael entered the yard. Oh, he came, and I have not had time to change, exclaimed Chris. Good evening, Michael said politely, entering the room and handing Maggie a box of chocolates. Come to the table, she said, a little embarrassed. John, why are you standing there? Come on, give your dear guest a treat, Maggie said to her husband. John fussed. Michael, will you try my cherry liqueur or my moonshine? Oh, this is some fine moonshine I've made. Clear as a tear. I don't really drink, Michael started to refuse. But you should respect the hospitality of your hosts, so I think I'll try some of your liqueur. Good. John was happy and poured the drink. Maggie began to take care of the guest. Don't be shy, we keep things simple. Michael ate the pies and praised them. But most of all, he liked boiled potatoes with pickles. After drinking Naluka, he relaxed a little and began to talk about his life and why he came to work in the village. I never knew my parents. My mother abandoned me in the maternity hospital, so first I was in a baby home, and then I was transferred to an orphanage, said Michael sadly. I had a grandmother who lived in the village. She was old, and they wouldn't let her take custody of me. But Maggie used to come to the orphanage 2 or 3 times a year, bringing me gifts and crying, stroking my head with her wrinkled hand. And then she stopped coming at all. She must have died. And where she is buried, I don't even know where to go to her grave. I did well at school. I especially liked geography, and I dreamed of visiting different countries. I also wanted to become a teacher. Therefore, after receiving my school leaving certificate, I applied to the Pedagogical Institute. While studying, I lived in a dormitory. And then I was told that as a pupil of an orphanage, the state should provide me with an apartment. It took me a long time to get it. I went to various instances. The director of the school where I got a job after graduation helped me. He had a friend who worked in the administration. Thanks to him, I got a 1-room apartment. True, it needed repairs, but I was not afraid of that. My friends from the orphanage helped me, and I still keep in touch with them. Then I met Emily. She worked as a saleswoman in a bookstore, where I like to often look. 6 months later, we got married, and 9 months later, our daughter Lisa was born. After her maternity leave, Emily went back to work, and then she was offered a transfer to a jewelry store. From that moment on, she began to change literally in front of my eyes. Emily began to reproach me that I do not earn enough, that it is necessary to change the apartment for a bigger one, because my daughter will grow up and she needs a separate room. And what could I do on a teacher's salary? I tried my best. I took extra lessons, class management, tutoring. I came home late, but I had time to play with my daughter and help my wife with household chores. And she still wasn't happy with me. And then Emily said she was leaving me for another, richer and more successful man. I persuaded her to stay, but she was adamant, saying that she was tired of the poor life and that she wants to dress well and fashionably, travel and dine in restaurants. So I let her go, only asking that she let me see my daughter. She herself suggested that Lisa live with me for a while so as not to traumatize the child's psyche. I didn't object. Emily packed her things and went to live with her new chosen one. She rarely saw her daughter now, and when she came, she told me how well her life was going. She bragged about her new outfits. After she left, Lisa cried and said she wanted to go to her mom. I comforted her as best I could, but I couldn't help her. A year later, Emily came back to us. I didn't question her about anything. I forgave her for my daughter's sake, and we went back to being a family. But 6 months ago, I found out that Emily had started seeing a man again, even though she assured me it was nothing like that. I was so disgusted that she was lying to me again. I packed my things now. At first, I lived with friends, and when school was over, I quit my job and came here. I miss my daughter very much, of course. She can already read. And yesterday I sent her a letter in which I wrote that I love her very much, and I will definitely come to visit her soon. I remember how Lisa missed her mom, her bitter sobs. And that's why I couldn't let her stay with me again, while Emily would again organize her personal life. I'd rather have Lisa live with Mom, and I'd take her here in the country for summer vacation. Yes, Nick sighed. He poured moonshine into a shot glass and drank it in a gulp. Maggie was silent for a while, and then spoke again. "Why do you eat so badly, Alex?" She moved a plate with homemade sausage to him. "I'll put the samovar on now. We'll drink tea with jam. I have such delicious jam made of paradise apples. I made it myself this year." "Oh, it's been a long time since I've had such a delicious meal." He leaned back in his chair. "Thank you for the treat." After a short conversation, Alex started to go home. Chris came out to see him off. "What nice and hospitable parents you have. Does your daughter look a lot like you?" He stopped at the gate. "Excuse me for an indiscreet question, are you married?" "No," Chris replied sharply. "I was married, but it didn't work out, and I don't want to discuss it." "I'm sorry," Alex repeated guiltily. "Good night." He turned around and walked quickly down the dark country street, holding the bag of pies that the caring Maggie had handed him. How unlucky for the man. Maggie sighed as she cleared the table. "Archel's right. You can tell he's a good man, but he's unlucky with his wife. I wish you had a husband like that, Chris." She turned to her daughter. "I already told you that I do not need anyone," she replied with irritation. "We don't know how long he'll be with us. He will get tired of living in our village and will go back to the city." Chris did not invite Alex to visit her anymore. And at school, she only nodded her head in greeting if they met in the teacher's lounge. In the middle of the school year, Alex suddenly left for the city, and none of the teachers could understand what had happened to him. He said it was a family emergency. Mary, the headmistress, explained. I didn't question him further. His face was already blank. I think he got a telegram of some kind. "Yes, I brought him a telegram," confirmed Mealy, the postmistress. "And it said, 'Come right away. Emily's in the hospital, that's all. I don't know what happened to him.'" She waved her hands helplessly. Alex returned to the village 2 weeks later. He was accompanied by a girl of about 6, who held his hand tightly and looked around with frightened eyes. As they were walking home, they came across Maggie coming back from the store. "Did you bring your daughter to visit?" Maggie asked, looking at the girl. "Wow, she looks just like you. She looks just like you." No, Alex shook his head. He sighed. "Lisa will live with me forever now." "Did your ex-wife run away to another man again?" Maggie asked tactlessly. "That's what women are like." "Emily died," Alex answered briefly. "Let's go, I have to look at the kindergarten. Maybe they'll agree to look after Lisa while I'm at school." "Why do you need a daycare center?" Maggie took another look at the girl who was hiding behind her father's back. "You can bring your daughter to us. I'm at home with my granddaughter all day anyway, and I'll look after your girl. She'll be better off at our place than in the garden, where there are a lot of children without her." "I don't know," Alex mumbled uncertainly. "I don't feel comfortable burdening you." "Well, think about it." Maggie switched to you. "You brought a girl from the city to a village where she had never been before and didn't know anyone. So you want to leave her alone with strange children? You don't know how they'll treat her. I hadn't thought of that, he frowned. Thank you for offering to look after Lisa. Don't worry, I'll pay you for it. No way. Maggie was indignant. I don't want to hear any more about it, so bring your daughter tomorrow morning. I think we'll find a common language with her. At home, Maggie told Chris that Alex had returned to the village not alone, but with his daughter, whom he would bring to them tomorrow morning. Mom, can you handle 2 kids? Chris asked worriedly. Why wouldn't I be? Surprised Maggie. Did I put you 2 on your feet? No one helped me. And I still had time to work and do chores. She stopped talking, thinking of her youngest daughter. No matter how angry she was at her, no matter how much she scolded her, she was still worried and concerned about her. One day, Maggie even asked Leon, the chairman's chauffeur, to stop by Catherine's house to see how she was doing. Leon stopped by and replied that there were other people living in the apartment, and they didn't know anything about Catherine. Greg also did not appear in the village, but it was said that he got a job at the depot, and now he delivers sand and rubble to construction sites. And whether he and Catherine lived together or not, no one knew. The next morning, Alex really brought Lisa to Maggie. The girl did not want to let go of her father's hand, looking fearfully at strangers. Have you ever seen a live piglet? Maggie tried to distract her. Come on, I'll show it to you. And we have a cockerel and hens. They're in the hen house now. It's cold outside, so we don't let them out. Maybe they've already laid their eggs. Will you help me collect them? Shall we go? She gave Lisa her hand. It's time for your daddy to go to work, or he'll be late for class and the principal will scold him. Lisa looked at her father, who nodded approvingly, and hesitantly put her hand in Maggie's. Well, that's good, rejoiced the latter, and we'll bake pancakes on the stove and boil porridge. What do you like best, buckwheat or wheat? Maggie led the girl to the hen house and waved to Alex to go away. Chris came out onto the porch and, seeing her colleague, stopped in confusion. Vera Nikolaevna, he rejoiced. Are you going to work too? He looked at his watch. Perhaps we should hurry up, or we might actually be late for the start of classes. After class, Chris and Alex walked together again toward Maggie's house on the snow-covered country road. They were not in a hurry now, enjoying the silence and the frosty weather. What did your wife die of? Chris suddenly asked. Was she sick with something? Alex sighed and, after a little silence, answered. She was in a car accident. The man she was in the car with was alive, and Emily was in intensive care for a week. Doctors, as best they could, fought for her life, but alas, nothing could be done. The injuries were too severe. I'm so sorry, Chris whispered. Your daughter is without a mom. I grew up without a mother myself, and I know what it's like. He sighed again. So I'm going to try to replace her with Lisa. As much as I can. You'll probably go back to the city now, Chris suggested, and our school will be without a geography and history teacher again. No, we won't go back to the city. Alex shook his head. We have no relatives there, and friends and acquaintances have their own families, their own worries. And I liked it in your village. People are very kind and helpful. It's rare to find such people in the city nowadays. Our people are really good, confirmed Chris, both in sorrow and in joy, always together, always helping each other. I've already seen that he supported Chris, who slipped on the slippery road. All my life I have lacked family and close people who could take care of me a little bit, something to advise me. Tell us, please, how did you live in the orphanage? It must have been hard, Chris asked. I don't even want to remember about that time. Alex sighed heavily. We had everything, a roof over our heads, food, shoes, clothes. But I always envied those kids who had parents, at least a mom or dad. We attended a regular school and studied in a class with homeschooled children. That's what we called them. They, of course, were different from the orphans. They were freer in their choice of entertainment, friends, and even food. They did not have to get up early on weekends, do exercises, and rush to the canteen to have time to take a seat at the table. They had the love of their relatives, and in my soul, only resentment and anger. I always ask myself a question: why am I worse than them? Why did I grow up without a mother and father? What was my fault when my own mother left me in the maternity hospital and ran away? And I always waited for my mother to come to her senses, to come and take me home. But as time went on, no one ever came for me. Have you tried to find your mother? Chris asked cautiously. I found her. Alex nodded his head. My grandmother, when she came to visit me at the orphanage, told me about her, calling her for some reason without a byline. I remembered my mother's last name, first name, middle name, but the year of birth did not fit in my head, so I had to look for her a little longer. But I got lucky. And you're in touch with her now? Chris looked at him with interest. We haven't even met. Alex looked away. Or rather, I came to her address. She lives in the neighboring region. And I found out that my mother has 3 more children, 2 daughters and a son, that their family lives amicably. My mother loves her children very much and takes care of them. And she did not even tell anyone about my existence. I learned all this from elderly women who lived in the same building. At first I wanted to go up to the apartment and look into the eyes of the woman who had abandoned me as a baby. I wanted to ask her why she had done me such an injustice. And then I decided that we should not meet, let her live as she did surrounded by her beloved children. She and I are total strangers to each other. And even if we met, it wouldn't change anything about our relationship. Well, that's not fair. Chris even jumped up. How could she live with a clear conscience, knowing that she had once left a small child literally at the mercy of fate? I don't want to condemn or justify her. Alex stopped next to Chris. Maybe she had a difficult life situation and she couldn't do otherwise. You are a kind person. Chris opened the gate and entered the yard. You know how to forgive. And I still hate my little sister Mealy because she... Chris didn't have time to finish, because as soon as she entered the house, the dog Jessie rushed to Alex. And she quickly chattered. Daddy, Daddy. Me and Grandma Maggie made pancakes together. They were so good. We saved some for you. And Grandma Maggie let me pet the pig. He's so little, and he's grunting. And Grandpa Nick promised me a ride on the big tractor. And there's a little girl named Jessica who I even got to play with a little. I see you got along with everyone. Alex laughed. I hope you behaved well. They won't complain about you? No way. Maggie waved her hands. Jessica helped me. I even put Jessica to bed myself. What do you mean? Chris was surprised. Usually you have to rock her in your arms. Oh. Jessica has a way with a girl. Maggie smiled. She sat down beside the crib and began to tell her a story. She listened and fell asleep. That's what it means. Children always understand each other. No matter how much Alex refused, Maggie still persuaded him to sit down at the table. She put a bowl of fresh soup in front of him and then served him some pancakes. At the same time, Chris was talking to Jessica and was surprised to find out that the girl was developing beyond her years. She could read, write, and count. And Jessica said that all this was taught to her by her daddy, whom she loves very much. Now 5 days a week Jessica spent at the Watsons. And on Saturdays and Sundays Andrew took care of his daughter. He again offered Maggie money for looking after the girl, but she even resented him. Well, I do not have an extra bowl of soup or porridge for the child. Then Alex, before taking Jessica home, went to the village store. He bought honey gingerbread, which Maggie loved, or halva, or even chocolate candies. She couldn't refuse such gifts, though she grumbled. Why do you spend money on this? I can drink with sugar. Spring passed. Summer and the long-awaited vacation came. Vera finished tidying up the classroom and, having returned home, found out that Alex and Jessica came to their house to say goodbye before the road. They're going into town, Maggie said. I told them you were at school, but they didn't have time to go there or they'd miss the bus. They were gone for good. Chris got kind of sad. Remember I told you he wouldn't be in the village for long? I wanted to ask, but I didn't dare. Maggie looked guiltily at her daughter. What do you care? Well, he's gone and gone. But the students are left without a teacher again. Well, they can invite a new one. Chris nodded and went about her chores. But still she kept thinking about Alex, who wouldn't leave her mind. The next day she met Mary in the school corridor, who was on her way to her office. Excuse me, but I'd like to ask you something, Chris said in a quiet voice. and Mary stopped and looked at her in surprise. We won't have a geography and history teacher again in the new school year? Why, Chris, would you say that? Mary called all her teachers by you and first name even though she had once taught. I haven't received Alex's letter of resignation. He's on vacation now and should be back to work at the end of August. But he left and took his daughter with him. Chris kept asking. If he had gone away for a few days, he could have left Jessica with us. I don't know what kind of business a man might have. Mary grinned. When he comes back, you can ask him about it then. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some work to do. They're expecting a report from the town council. It was the middle of August. Alex and his daughter hadn't shown up in the village yet, but Aiden showed up and came to visit his mother. In the evening, he'd shown up at the Watsons' house drunk. Chris was the only one home. Maggie was at the neighbor's house, and Nick hadn't come home from work. Why didn't you tell me I had a daughter? Aiden looked at Chris with anger. Or do you have something to hide from me? I wanted to tell you, Chris grinned, but you were so into my little sister Emma, who was also pregnant. With you. So who did you have, a son or a daughter? Aiden looked away. A son. Congratulations on your heir. Chris grinned again. You and Emma must be very happy. What do you want from me? Why are you here? Are you still my wife? Aiden said uncertainly. We're not divorced, are we? Why don't we try living together again? And we have a daughter now. How will she grow up without a father? What about Emma? Chris squinted. You're living with two families, aren't you? You got a kid there too? Emma and I haven't lived together for a long time. Aiden sat down on a stool. We broke up right after the birth of our son, whom she gave to the orphanage. Gave him away where? Chris asked. Her own child? An orphanage? That can't be. Why would she want a sick child? Aiden took a cigarette out of the pack to light it, but remembering, put it back. The boy was born with some kind of abnormality. The doctors said we were going to have a hard time with him. So Emma decided to give up her son while he was still young. He'll be better cared for at the orphanage than his own mother. You know your sister, she doesn't think about anyone but herself. How could you let her do that? Chris paced nervously from side to side. And after all this, you dare to come here and ask us to live together? It's like nothing happened. Get out of here and don't let me see you again. But Aiden got up from his stool and came toward her. Get out, Chris shouted, pointing her hand toward the door. And forget you have a daughter. I'll never let you see her again. We'll see about that. Aiden kicked the stool, which fell to the floor with a clatter. When I want to see her, I'll see her. Who are you going to see? Maggie came into the room and looked menacingly at her son-in-law. What are you doing here? And drunk? I want to see my daughter. Aiden looked at his mother-in-law defiantly. I didn't even know she was born. They hid that fact from me. I'm offering Chris a family again. And she's stupid, doesn't agree. You'd think someone else would have a baby. I'm going to take a log and throw you off the porch, Maggie said firmly, moving toward Aiden. You'll forget your way back to us in no time. Yes, I gave you my trust. He took a swing at Maggie, but immediately grimaced in pain. Alex, who had entered the room at the same time, intercepted his arm and twisted it back hard. Are you going to leave, or will they throw you out of the house like a puppy? He asked Aiden sternly. What kind of a man are you if you're going to lay a hand on a woman? Who are you? Aiden raised his head, writhing in pain. Alex led Aiden out into the yard, brought him to the gate, and only then let go of his hand. I used to do sambo when I was young. So you don't want to mess with me, he told Aiden, and walked quickly back into the house. Did you come for good or just to get your things and papers? Maggie asked him. And Sarah, she's grown so much over the summer. I didn't recognize her at first. Of course she has grown up, Alex smiled. She'll be starting school on September 1st. Chrissy turned to her. Will you take another student in your class? Such a capable one. Of course I will, she smiled back. While Maggie was asking how Alex had spent the summer, Chris went outside and sat down on a bench. You've been gone so long? Mary began to speak. I thought you weren't coming back to the village. Did you go on vacation? We went to my mother's, Alex answered after a little silence. I thought about it for a long time and decided to meet her to find out why she did that to me. And you did, Chris whispered. Yes, Alex nodded his head. It wasn't easy for both of us, but still I was able to find the strength to forgive my mother, who literally knelt in front of me and cried bitterly. I also met my sisters and brother, my nephews. So I have a big family now. They kept us home too long. Persuaded us to stay forever, to live all together. But I'm not ready for such a change in my life yet. Did you find out why your mother abandoned you when you were still a baby? Chris asked cautiously. As she told me when she was young, she was, as you might say, quite windy, easily falling in love with guys and easily breaking up with them, until one of them turned her head, Alex began. After a while, her mother got pregnant and was even very happy about it, thinking that her lover would marry her right away. But it turned out differently. He left her and never showed up again. It was too late to have an abortion. Then she returned to her mother, who constantly reproached her and was ashamed of her dissoluteness. And yet my grandmother did not refuse to help and was ready to help in the upbringing of her grandson. But my mother decided in her own way, having given birth to a child, that is me, she refused him in the maternity hospital and went to live in another city. And she never remembered you? Chris was horrified. She says she did. Alex sighed, but she never tried to find me. She thought I was adopted by other parents and that everything was fine in my life. When she saw me on the doorstep of her apartment, she didn't even believe that I was her son. After all, it had been many years, Alex continued. Then we had a long talk with her. I told her about my life in the orphanage, about my grandmother, who sometimes visited me. My mother cried bitterly and constantly asked for forgiveness. She introduced me to her husband, my sisters and brother, not hiding from them that she had committed a great sin in her youth. To be honest, my sisters were very happy to have an older brother, and my little brother proudly declared that he wanted to be like me. I'm very happy for you, Chris said sincerely. Now you and Jessica have relatives, and you won't feel lonely. And the one who was rudely escorted out of the house, who do you belong to? Alex asked. Chris sighed. Husband, or rather, ex-husband. She told Alex everything that had happened recently in her life with Aiden. Yes, he stretched out, and after all that, he dares to show up at your door like that. But that's not all, she said, her head low. It turns out I have a nephew, only my sister put him in a boarding school because he was born with some kind of disease. I want to track down this kid and take him home with us. Maybe he can be cured with proper care and constant attention. You are a very good person, Alex looked at her with respect. I will try to help you. I still have some vacation days left. And tomorrow morning I'll go back to the city to collect information about your nephew. Only he hesitated. I'll have to stay with you for a few days. Chris nodded quickly and began to thank Alex for his help. He pulled a notebook out of his pocket and began writing down the information about Lexi and Aiden that Chris had told him. The next day, Alex took the first bus to town and returned from there a few days later. All this time, Chris and Maggie had been waiting impatiently for him. Chris and Maggie had already decided that they would definitely take the boy from the boarding school and take care of him. When Alex came into their house, they immediately rushed to him with questions. I have 2 pieces of news for you, he said tiredly, sinking down on a chair. Good and not so good. Which one should I start with? The good news, of course, Chris and Maggie exclaimed with one voice. I managed to find out which boarding school your nephew and grandson was in. He really has health problems. The doctors found a heart defect, and without surgery, they gave no chance for him to live a full and long life. What's the other news? Chris asked with bated breath. Wasn't there? No? No, Alex waved his hands. Don't think anything bad, there's nothing wrong with the boy. Only he was adopted by foster parents who will be responsible for his treatment. They have both means and conditions for that. We have to take our grandson, Maggie said firmly. We don't want him to live with strangers when he has his own grandparents. I'm afraid it won't work. Alex helplessly waved his hands. They made all the necessary documents and took the child to another country. Maybe it's even better, because heart surgeries are very expensive. That means that your grandson has a good chance to live on. Lexi, Maggie covered her face with her hands. What have you done? How could you have the conscience to get rid of your own child? You should have brought her to us if you didn't want to raise her yourself. She got up from the chair and went into the other room. Thank you so much for helping us find out about the nephew we'll never see. Chris looked at Alex with gratitude. Without your help, it would have been much more difficult for us. On September 1st, the schoolyard was crowded as usual. Chris had lined up her first grade class and was now observing the students. Jessica stood serious in the white blouse and dark blue sundress that Maggie had ironed for her yesterday. Alex admired his daughter from afar and involuntarily shifted his gaze to Chris, who was nervous again, as if she was receiving her first graders for the first time. After lessons, just like a year ago, Chris and Alex left the school together, and Jessica ran to Grandma Maggie and Grandpa Nick to tell them how her first day of school had been. To be honest, when I came here, I thought that I wouldn't stay here for a long time, and right after the end of the school year I would go back to the city, Alex said, looking at the blue sky, where white fluffy clouds were slowly floating. And what do you think now? Chris looked at him questioningly. What has changed in your life? You know, I've never been as happy as I am now, he smiled. I've met some wonderful people who have become like family to me. And most importantly, he was silent for a moment. I met you and fell in love. Perhaps for the first time in my life. I like you very much, too, Chris said, embarrassed. But you know I have a daughter. So what? Alex laughed. Now we will have 2 daughters. I've always dreamed of having a big family, so I'm willing to have a 3rd and a 4th child. Chris, I promise I'll never hurt you or Jessica. He's made a subtle switch to you with her. We've been through a lot in life, and now we must be happy together. I agree, Chris replied, after a moment's silence. Emma was lying on the bed and didn't even turn her head when the door opened and someone entered the room. She didn't expect any of her family to visit her, although in the letter she had sent to her mother, after much thought, she had written that she was very ill and they might never see each other again. "Hello, sister," Chris whispered as she approached the bed. "You've changed so much that I didn't even recognize you at first." "This illness has changed me," Emma said, and tried to rise a little on the pillow, but collapsed helplessly back on the bed. "But you did come, didn't you?" said Emma. "So you've decided to forgive me." "I don't hold it against you," Chris said calmly. "What happened is what happened. It's not for me to judge you. Life has already decided everything for us." "You came alone," Emma looked hopefully at the door. "I wish I could meet my mom and apologize to her for not seeing her for so many years. Our mom couldn't make it. She's been feeling very ill lately, but she's waiting for you to come and see them herself. Daddy, when he read your letter, thought at first that you were deceiving everyone to make them feel sorry for you, and he wouldn't even let me come to see you. But Mama and I managed to persuade him." "I'm very sorry to everyone," Emma said, tears streaming from her eyes. "And now I'm paying the price. Tell me about your life. Is everything okay?" "What's there to tell?" Chris sat back in her chair. "Mom and Dad retired. Well, you know Dad, he can never stay still. He helps out in the workshop, goes fishing in the morning, goes mushrooming in the woods. My mom is sick, but she still makes a fuss about the household. My husband, children, and I often visit them, bring food and help them." "Do you have children?" Emma looked at her sister in surprise. "You said you couldn't get pregnant." When was that?" Chris laughed. "I've got 3 kids now. The oldest, Jessica, is in 8th grade. Jean is a 1st grader. And the youngest, Adrian, just turned 5. "I don't get it," Emma frowned. "Where did you get such a grown-up daughter?" "It doesn't matter where she came from," Chris said seriously. "What matters is that she's my daughter, and I love her very much. My son could have gone to 1st grade too." Emma turned her head to the side. "You probably don't know that Aiden and I had a baby with a heart condition, and I had to put him in boarding school. He's probably dead by now." Emma wiped away a tear. "Is your son alive?" Chris looked at her sister angrily. "My husband Jean managed to track down his foster parents, who told me that Adrian had heart surgery and is now a perfectly healthy child, moderately mischievous and mischievous. They even sent a picture of him." He looks a lot like Aiden. Emma frowned. That's an interesting name. How can I see him? You can't, Chris shrugged. First of all, he lives in another country. And secondly, he's got real parents who spent a lot of effort and money on his recovery. Unlike you, who abandoned him to his fate. That's what you're paying for now. Emma's crying again. And not just for that. For all the evil I've done to you and my parents, and other people too. It's time to pay the bills. It's a shame to leave life so soon, but it can't be helped. Stop burying yourself before your time. Chris got angry. I haven't talked to the doctors yet, but I think you'll be fine. We'll take you to the country for fresh air, put you under the cherry tree chair. You'll listen to the birds singing. Remember how the nightingales sing here? Home and walls help. God willing, you'll get well and get back on your feet. And when the vacations come, we'll bring the children to the village, and you'll study with your nephews. Children will get anyone back on their feet. Thank you for the hope. Emma smiled weakly. I'm sorry, sister. I didn't need your Aiden back then. I just felt bad that everything was going so well for you. All I had was the wind blowing through my head. I wanted it all. You think I only ruined your family? I stole another husband away from a family with 2 little kids. His wife probably cursed me for that. And I wanted to have a family of my own and have a baby. Emma was silent for a long time, then said quietly, but it didn't work out with either of them. I thought long and hard about whether I should write you a letter, but it was so scary to die alone. Calm down, Chris stroked her younger sister's shoulder. You're not alone now. You will always have your family and friends with you. I'll find out from your doctor when you can be taken home, and we'll pick you up at the weekend and take you to your parents' village. Is that a deal? Emma nodded her head silently. Tears continued to roll down her cheeks. The doctors couldn't say anything comforting to Chris. The tumor was growing too fast, metastasizing to all her organs. And how long her sister will last, it is unknown. Maybe a month, maybe a week, maybe a couple days. And there's nothing that can be done. Chris put her hand over her mouth. There are some drugs, aren't there? You tell me, can we find the money to buy them? In your case, it's pointless to spend money, answered the gray-haired doctor. If you want, you can take your sister home. We will prescribe the necessary medication to help her with the pain. Okay, Chris lowered her head. Then we'll take her out of the hospital on Saturday. But Emma didn't live to see Saturday. Chris grieved for a long time, feeling sorry for her little sister and her failed life. Gene did his best to comfort his wife. Then one day he said, "You know, everyone chooses his own fate and is responsible for this choice. But you can always turn from the wrong path, if of course there is enough time for it. It's good that your sister had time to apologize to you and left with a light heart." You're so wise, Chris said, pressing herself against her husband. The best man in the world. Everybody's got their own road to travel. And to know where you fall, where you need to rest, stop, and on which you will find happiness. Oh, these roses are gorgeous. What's the occasion for such a gorgeous bouquet? Grace asked. Is it for me? Or are we going to someone's house? You're a champion. Honey, I love you. Kieran held out roses to Grace. You know that, don't you? So without further ado, marry me. Grace waited for a moment for further developments. Then she raised her eyebrows and said disappointedly, "Is that all? What do you mean?" "I don't understand," replied Kieran. "Isn't that a marriage proposal?" "Silly. What do you mean?" "I want you to be my wife, to live a long and happy life together, to have children." "I don't understand." "Is that the best you can do?" Grace asked unhappily. "Where's the celebration? Where's the ring? You should at least look on the internet to see how men propose to girls." "We'll go to a restaurant and celebrate," said Kieran. "What about the ring? What about the video of you proposing?" "Grace, what's the big deal? We love each other, we want to get married. What's all the fuss? What's with all the hoopla? I'm a simple man. I'm just saying what I can say." "I want a ring for your marriage proposal," said Grace, resentfully. "Everyone will laugh at me when I tell them you proposed and didn't give me a ring." Grace let out a tear. God, I'll be embarrassed in front of the others. And even embarrassed. I'd be humiliated to the core. Who's going to ask you about the ring? Who needs it? Is it so fundamental? You have to have a ring and no other way. I just thought it would be better to use the money for a trip after the wedding. Kieran smiled and hugged Grace. That'll be the ring for you. You're crazy, she pushed him away, her tears drying in a flash. A wedding trip. You're clearly out of your mind. What haven't we seen? Hanging around in buses, swallowing dust, listening to tedious lectures from tour guides. What kind of wedding trip is that? It's horrible. Who would you tell about a honeymoon like that? We'd be laughed at, Grace said, indignantly. People go abroad and we're like idiots on some itinerary. We should go to Turkey as a last resort. Who's going to laugh? Kieran was getting nervous. Who cares about our lives? Grace, you're saying the wrong thing. Turkey can wait. We haven't seen anything here. And I don't want to see anything here, Grace said sharply. What's good here? Married. I want a good life, to be envied, not pitied. Well, don't all your friends get a ring and go abroad? I know some of them don't even have boyfriends and don't get married. Why do I have to settle for the worst? I want the best. Kieran. Grace laughed out of turn and hugged him. When should one want everything but when one is young? Later, when we are old and sick, we shall not want anything. But now I want it. I really want the ring, and Turkey, and the video. I'm afraid your demands don't match my possibilities, said Kieran sadly. What else do you want to know here on the shore? Or when we're going to set sail for the voyage of a lifetime? I'm afraid I can't give you what you want. I also want a home, our home, or home, where it's just you and me and our children, where there's no one else, no parents, no grandparents. Just you and me, Grace said. I wanted this to be a surprise to you, Kieran smiled. I'll tell you. You and I are going to have a house like this, or rather we already have one. My grandmother will move in with my mom and dad, and we'll move into her house. My grandmother gave me a gift. She gave me a deed to her house. Can you believe it, Grace? Grace looked at her husband-to-be's satisfied face. The smile slipped from her face, and from the expression on her face, Kieran realized that the surprise had failed. What kind of house is this? Grace said with a tone that tolerated no objection. It's a 60s Khrushchevka. My idea of a house is at least 2 stories, floor-to-ceiling windows, underfloor heating. And I walk barefoot on the warm floor. Look through these windows and enjoy this house. This is home. Grace, your dreams are unrealistic, Kieran objected. Other people live in apartments all their lives. They don't have a place to live and don't expect to. We have a whole house, 4 rooms, a kitchen, a veranda. We can add a bathroom. Why should we add new old things to old things? It is old, Grace said. And then, I told you before, why should we look up to those who are doing worse than we are? We have to reach for the best, strive for it, and then everything will work out. I'm sure of it. You'll see, Kieran. Everything will work out and we'll have everything. You just have to want it badly enough. I see that potential in you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen you and loved you. I will always, I will always be there for you and support you because I love you so much. I love you so much. Let's start over. Do what again? Kieran didn't understand. I accept the bouquet. It's not going anywhere. Flowers don't last forever. And you properly organize a marriage proposal. Get ready. Buy a ring, but make sure it's a diamond. Even if it's small, it has to be a diamond. Book a restaurant, invite your friends, have a professional video shoot, maybe some fireworks, the whole thing. Grace, I don't like the whole staged thing. It just feels so fake to me. I'll feel like a clown. Love is a 2-person feeling. It likes silence, not fireworks. And I really, really want it all. For me, for my lovely future wife. Can you make it happen? I need it, Kieran. She looked ingratiatingly into his eyes and asked, Please, Kieran. Kieran once again tried to convince Grace that this was an unpleasant situation for him. Grace, here you keep saying that you want to be envied. Why would you do that? Because everyone knows that envy is a bad thing, both for the person who's envious and the person who's envious. I feel good when I'm envied. It makes me feel so euphoric, so energized. So sweet, Grace replied. Naughty. She laughed. That's the kind of wife you're going to have, Kieran. Not vicious, but determined. I look envious men in the eye and taunt them with my superiority over them, the wretches. Grace, you are also a great sinner, said Kieran, putting his arms around her and kissing her. Then he looked intently into her eyes, which were burning with a passion he did not know, and said, pride in you is overflowing, and this is a great sin. But I love you, I love you. Since when are you such a believer? Grace asked quietly. Well, it's all right. It's the way it should be. Different poles attract. You and I are so different. I'm the devil by your standards. You're an angel. And we're drawn to each other. That's love, Kieran, Grace whispered in his ear, her voice husky. He recognized that intonation when her voice became unreal, with an altered timbre. It meant she was aroused and wanted him. I love you like this. Yes, darling, yes, Grace whispered. That's what love is, and love justifies everything. Grace had everything she wanted: a marriage proposal, a party, a ring, a noisy company, a video shoot, and even fireworks. And most importantly, she saw the envy in her friend's eyes, unconcealed envy. And from that, as she thought, the holiday was a success. This is how she will go through life, so that everyone envies her and burst from this envy. And Kieran, although he has his own opinion, Grace knows how to tame him and direct him in the right direction. In spite of everyone, she will be happy, and she and Kieran will have everything they want. They just have to want it badly enough. The wedding of Kieran and Grace also thundered on a large scale, accompanied by noisy fun and videotaping. Afterwards, they visited Turkey, realizing their wish at her behest. Such noisy festivities were not in keeping with Kieran's character. He was very tired. Very tired. Even a vacation in Turkey had not done him any good. He was glad it was time to go to work. Grace's energy kept him on his toes. Maybe those who live together before marriage are right. At least they could figure out if they could live together. Or were they so different that living together was impossible? Kieran loved Grace very much, so he could not propose an unofficial marriage to her. He felt he would humiliate her with this proposal. He thought Grace deserved to be a real, legal wife. So a little old-fashioned, or rather, not modern at all, was Kieran. And all because of the way he'd been brought up. Both grandmother and mom and dad were educated, cultured people, and always resented the relationship between a guy and a girl like try to live together, and then already in register marriage. Mother, and especially grandmother, could not understand how these cohabitants had already had 2 children, and still could not make up their minds whether to get married or to try further. That's why such relationships were taboo for Kieran. But now, yes, he's very tired of Grace. I think with the money we have left after the vacation, we should make some cosmetic repairs in the house, said Kieran, when he and Grace moved into the house of his grandmother. Not at all, Grace replied emphatically. I don't see the point of such an investment. We should build the new house we want behind this house. And then this one should be demolished, Kieran grinned. Who are we? Do you know how much money is needed for such a dream? We don't have that much money, and we don't know if we will have it. We need more than the crumbs we have left from the gift money to start building. It starts small, Grace said confidently. We'll get a loan from the bank and we'll build. Not invest in this old place, but build a house from scratch that will really be ours. Unrealistic, said Kieran. I don't earn enough to get into bank debt. They'll find you another job. We'll cover the loan with our main salary and live on our part-time jobs. And your salary? It won't be part of our family budget? Kieran asked. Well, Kieran, how could you ask me that? I didn't expect that from you. Grace laughed, switching to a joking tone. I am a woman. I have my own needs. I need money for them too. So my salary will be used for those proverbial pins. And then the house and the lot are yours alone. What's the point of me investing in it? We'll build the house together. What if I get thrown overboard? Grace, what are you thinking? We just got married. What about me? It's life, Kieran. Life and realities. And unfortunately, that's what they are. When you get divorced, you take what's yours. But I didn't get married to get divorced. Grace, listen to me. We don't need a new house, we can fix this one up. And 4 rooms, stone walls. It'll last us a lifetime. You're talking like an old man for our lifetime. Kiran, we live in a different century, with all the benefits and innovations. Why should we live in the old way? Don't you realize how great it is to live in a smart house, where everything is automated? Come on, Kiran, don't be shy. You're a man. And as you know, a man should build a house, raise a son, and plant a tree. I'll help you with the son and the tree, and you build a house. Be a man, said Grace. Let's not put off finding a job for you. I'll get right on it. You see how strong my ambition is. I'm willing to help you in any way I can, to support you. You can count on me. Tomorrow we'll go to the bank and find out what's going on. I've sketched the house. Look at this. Look at the gorgeous house we're going to have. Grace opened her laptop, called Kiran, and, smiling in anticipation of surprising her husband, said, "Come on, come here, look. There's too much information, there's too much of everything, and there's too much of you," Kiran wanted to say. "And we won't go to the bank tomorrow. We've got to think about it. While you're thinking, the dollar will rise. You've got to think fast. This is the age of quick decisions. The bolder the better. Or, if I understand correctly, are you going to live in this barn for the rest of your life?" No, Kiran, I don't believe I was wrong about you. You're smart, you're determined, and you're a man. That's how I saw you when I married you. Come here, come here. Kiran reluctantly walked over to his wife and sat down beside her. He was looking at his laptop, listening, but he couldn't hear Grace. He was tired, very tired. "Son, are you all right?" Ciaran was asked by Ciara's mom. "I look at you, you are not like the newlyweds, frowning, tired. Things not going well with you and Grace." "I'm fine, Mom. I'm just really tired. I've been working a lot. You know, Grace and I are going to build a new house. I've been working part-time, telecommuting. Honestly, I'm not getting enough sleep." "Kiran, would you say I'm meddling? But son, you've got to understand, your health is more important than a new house. You'll have a house, but your health will be gone forever. Sick people are not happy about anything, not even new houses. It's your decision to build a house." "It's my and Grace's decision," Kiran replied. My boy Ciara hugged her son and stroked his shoulder. "If you can't afford to build a house, you shouldn't tear yourself up like that. Sick, tired husbands are not necessary for people like Grace." Kiran answered his mother sharply. "Don't. I don't want to hear it. Don't say anything bad about Grace to me. She is my wife." Ciara sighed. "A wife takes care of her husband, not pulls the life out of him. I can see everything, son. I have eyes and ears. You've been too hasty with Grace, son. She needs another man, a man like her." "Why did you raise me like this?" Kiran asked, and putting his arms around his mother's neck like a child, he cried. "I'm weak, mother, weak." "No, Kiran, you're not weak." The mother stroked her son's head. "You're not a pushover. You're not a bore or a scoundrel or a peddler. I don't know. Maybe in this day and age that's a disadvantage rather than an advantage. Your father and I raised you to be a decent man, and we're proud of you. And Grace needs a man with qualities that you don't have. A man who will go over your head and do whatever it takes to get what he wants. If you want to build the house Grace is claiming with your hard-earned money, you're going to kill yourself, son." "Mom, but I love Grace. She's pregnant. We're having a baby, and I promised her this house. I can't not keep my word. This is where I regret raising you to be a man of your word. Can't you build a smaller house? Grace designed it herself, shows it off to everyone, brags about it, and that's why you can't back down." Ciara sighed heavily and said, "I have a serious talk for you, son. Come on, I'll feed you. We can talk about it." "Mom, thanks, I'm not hungry." "No, Kiran, you've lost weight. What's wrong with that? Come on." Ciara took her son under her arm and they went into the kitchen. "It's delicious as always," Kiran smiled after the meal. "Now we'll talk." "You think better on a full stomach," smiled his mother. "Have you taken a loan from the bank yet?" "No, not yet. We're going this week." Grace and Kieran sat in the kitchen with Ciara. "Granny's got some money too," said Ciara. "We can lend it to you on your own recognizance. When you can, and if you can pay it back." "Then why the receipt? Don't you trust me, Mother?" Kieran was surprised. "The receipt. Let it be a document for Grace. I know how unpredictable she is." "I told you not to speak ill of Grace," Kieran frowned. "Did I say anything bad? You're just in the wrong sled." Son Ciara sighed. "Oh, Kieran, it's great that we don't have to go to the bank," Grace said brightly. "Listen, since we have money to build a house, why don't we buy me a car on credit?" "Why? Do you have a second job? We can afford it. My belly's going to grow soon. Where will I go with it on the shuttle buses? And then the baby comes, how am I supposed to carry it?" "Wait," Grace. Kieran stopped her. "The money for the house came with conditions." "What conditions?" Grace asked unhappily. "Well, for one thing, it's a loan. Here's a receipt notarized by a notary. And secondly, on the condition that I'll work only at my main job, I'll give up my part-time job." "And we won't say you're moonlighting," Grace smiled conspiratorially. "But if we don't, who's going to know?" "Grace, honey, I want a car so badly. I can't even imagine driving to work. Everyone would be jealous," she laughed. "I'm not buying you a car. I feel sorry for people. Don't let anyone die. Let them live." Kieran tried to turn the conversation into a joking mode. "Kieran, please, please. A car for a woman is a necessity," Grace whimpered. Grace. I don't know if it's jealousy or work that's going to kill me. Is that what you want?" Kieran answered his wife seriously. "Can't you see I'm having a hard time? I sleep for 3 hours, I get up at 6, and then the money is on loan. I have to pay it back from every paycheck. I'll cover the debt." "What do you mean, on credit?" "They're your parents. Won't they forgive you for this money? They gave us all their money," Grace persisted. "Do you understand that?" Kieran asked. "Do you really think I'd leave my parents without money?" "I don't know," Grace shrugged. "Other parents forgive. And then they won't even have time to save for retirement. They're past their youth. They don't have a lot of wishes. They could have sacrificed that much money for their own son." Grace smiled and pouted like a child. "Do you really want your wife to work her ass off on the buses?" Mom was right, Kieran thought. That's why she had the debt notarized. Grace's needs not everyone can handle. "Look, Grace, ask your parents for money for a car," Kieran dared to say. His wife's demands were starting to piss him off. "I'll tell you right away, I'll give up my part-time job. Don't even think about it. I'm not able to work nights." "Do you hear yourself?" Grace was indignant. "I have a husband, and I'm going to beg my parents for money for a car. Kieran, have you humiliated yourself like this?" Kieran was silent. He realized that no matter what he said, Grace would have only her own opinion, and it was the right one. "I'll quit my second job, I'll pay off my parents' debt, I'll keep building the house. I'm not counting on a car. And that's my final answer," Kieran reported to his wife. "And now I have to sleep, and how do you want to sleep?" "How can you talk to me like that? I'm pregnant, and you're getting on my nerves." Grace burst into tears. "Who's getting on whose nerves? Stop crying, kitten." Kieran hugged his wife. "Let's go to bed, and you think about what I'm asking of you." "Wine? A car is a necessity for a woman and not a whim. A lot of promises that you'll think about it. Don't get your hopes up. You know I keep my word, and I'm keeping it this time," Grace persisted. She realized that after going to her parents' house, Kieran had become so uncooperative. His mommy must have told him that. No, now they would go to Kieran's parents together. Grace thought, "I must shield him from the influence of parental discipleship. I'm a wife now. And I'm the only one who should influence my husband. And the parents have finished their mission of education. And Kieran is not a boy to be danced to. He's a man who has to support and care for his family. I'll give my mother-in-law my opinion. She wouldn't dare come between me and Kieran. A man should have one woman to guide him through life. Mother's time is over. It's me now, Grace. Kieran's life guide. Kieran, darling, I love you so much. You realize that love isn't given to everyone, only to the chosen few. Your God must love you because I have you here with me. No one will ever love you like that. No one ever will. Embracing her husband, Grace whispered, I promised you a son. And now I've kept my promise. We already have one. All that's left is for him to be born. Can you imagine? Our favorite son. Kieran was happy with Grace being ever so slightly enthusiastic, but demanding nothing from him. They lay, they talked, they kissed. They loved each other. And in this moment there was no talk of the house, of how Grace would put it up, of how far her dreams had come, and how she was going to work hard to make those. And for Kieran, unrealistic dreams come true in their lives. He was grateful to her for these rare moments of respite from material things, because it was in these moments that he was truly happy. The rest of the time he was tired of Grace's bursting energy, of her plans, which were gaining momentum, demanding unrealistic investments. And then after that incident, Kieran realized that if she was up to something, she would achieve it by any means necessary. All means are good for her desires. That incident shocked him, and he realized that there would be many such cases and he should be ready for them. Do you love me? Grace put her arms around her husband and pressed herself against him. Oh, do you hear our Vincent beating? We've heard it already, she said to the fetus, tapping his belly. Not yet, Grace. I've asked you 100 times not to address the unborn child by name. Do you ever listen to me? Even though I forget. Oh, don't be angry. Won't you do me this little favor? My motherly whim. You're so angry that I'm afraid to admit to you my little wish. What else? Kieran asked unhappily. I hope it's not a dream of a yacht. Oh, I'll be braver now. Because what I have acquired is such a trifle compared to a yacht. Kieran looked at her fearfully. Come on. I'll show you my little girl. Grace took her husband's hand and led him out of the gate. A red car was parked outside their house. How was it? It's a lot cheaper than a yacht, Kitty. Honey, I'm so happy. Even though I'm on maternity leave, I'll drive my baby to work tomorrow. They're gonna die of jealousy. Can you imagine their faces? Grace talked and talked, and he couldn't hear her words out of shock. Just a high, skinny voice, like a pesky fly. Come on, I'll show you. You'll see how great it is, Grace chirped and tugged Kieran's hand. You've already taken me for a ride, Kieran said, emphasizing the word already. He pulled his hand out of his wife's and asked what money was used to buy this baby. He had never spoken so rudely to Grace before, but here he could not bear it. He couldn't help himself. Are you out of your mind? We're building a house. I was against the car. Why don't you listen to me? You only hear yourself. Sometimes I think you're insane. Grace's eyes filled with tears and she threw a violent tantrum. Kieran didn't want to see the tantrum and thus encourage it. He did not rush to comfort her. He turned around and went home. He waited for her to show up, but she wasn't. Kieran got worried and went outside. Neither Grace nor the car was there. Where was she? Where had she gone? The distraught pregnant woman got behind the wheel and sped off. Where would he look for her? He called her cell phone. The calls came in, but she didn't answer. His head split in two with worry. He began to get headaches very often. It had never happened before. But once he got married, it became a frequent occurrence. Kieran went into the house, took his medicine, made another call, and heard Grace's cell phone in her bag lying on the couch. He called Grace's parents, but she wasn't there, and her friends didn't have her either. She got home late, close to midnight, and as if nothing had happened, she rattled on. Kotik. You can't imagine how everyone sighed with envy when they saw my little girl. I'm in a wonderful mood, even though you're mad at me. No one's going to ruin my happiness. So Kitty, no need to get upset and get on each other's nerves. It's done. Kieran was silent. He was so nervous that his headache wouldn't let go. You feel good when others feel bad. Vampire was all Kieran could say. Yes, I'm your little vampire, Grace adopted a playful tone. And now I'm going to bite you, and then I'm going to kiss you. She threw herself around Kieran's neck, but he pulled her away from him. I can't see you. I can't. Go away nicely. Where would I go, Kieran? I'm your wife. And as you know, husband and wife are the same Satan. And then we'll have a son. Satan is you, Kieran said. I'm beginning to realize that we've rushed into marriage. You and I are different, you know. I think I'll have to put up with you and your delusions all my life. I'm getting a headache. I'm sorry, Kieran, Grace cried. I know it must be hard for you, but it's only at first. It's like that for everyone, until you get used to each other. And then they get used to it and become one. Understand, my dear man. Love is not for everyone. And I love you so much. I can't do it without you. I can't. Where did you get the money for the car? Kieran interrupted Grace's passionate speech. I'm talking about love, you're talking about money. So which one of us is the mercenary? I asked you a question. How hard is it to answer without all the waterworks? Just answer. I bought it on credit. I made the down payment with the money you were saving for your parents. Grace stopped talking. I suppose you'd better not know where the money is, said Kieran. You'll be on maternity leave with the baby. How are you going to pay off the loan? It's not that much money, though. The car isn't cheap. I think we'll be able to pay it off in no time. Who's we? IA. Grace grinned. We were plowing, said the fly that sat on the ox's horns. Well, you're the fly, the annoying fly that's bothering me, and I want to swat it in one fell swoop to be free of it. Don't do that, Kieran stopped himself. I promise it won't happen again. Believe me, we'll have a child, your son and mine. We'll have a new home. Imagine how happy we'll be. We'll come to each other. You'll see how great it will be. Now, if he had any money, Kieran kept it only on his card. The PIN number, known only to him, was unknown to Grace. He knew it was dangerous to keep money in the house without consulting him. Grace instantly found a use for it. For a time, Grace ceased her frenetic activity about the ideas and prospects she was creating for her husband. A child was born in Los Angeles, and she was fully immersed in motherhood, which pleased Kieran very much. Grace was probably right. Kieran thought it would take time for them to get used to each other. 6 months had passed since the birth of baby Vader, and Grace had resumed her efforts in the area of perfecting her family. She realized that their house was being built, and it was her credit. She had insisted on such a beautiful, comfortable, modern home. She had bought herself a car, it is true, against Kieran's wishes. But how comfortable she is now. And then it was her dream come true, too. Kieran took a break from her ideas. Time to get back into work, Grace thought. Otherwise, if her husband isn't pushed to exploits, the mire of a frustrated bog awaits him. There needs to be movement. Movement is life. I will not let Kieran die in this quagmire. I will push him forward, encourage him. We'll get to such heights, everyone will gasp and die of envy. Kieran, have you thought about changing jobs? Grace asked. You can't stay in the same rut with a steady paycheck. I think a man needs development, to move up, to feel on top of things. Somehow, Kieran, you've accepted your average salary, your status as a manager. If you see that the job is unpromising, is it worth holding on to it? I see your potential and I think you're capable of more. I'm happy with the job, Kieran replied. And then Grace. It's not easy to find a high-paying job in this town. This isn't Los Angeles. The rates are different here. And I think I have a pretty good job and the pay is pretty good. Not bad, Grace repeated, as if tasting the word. She was silent for a moment, as if giving Kieran time to consider the term. And then she said, not bad means nothing. Kieran, you're 31 years old, and you have a pretty good job with a pretty good salary. And at the moment you have a lot of debt, and you're willing to put up with it. Is that how I see it? What do you want from me? Kieran sighed. I'll tell you right away, I won't be able to work nights. I've been having these headaches lately. I'm not happy about the white light, so I realize that night work won't do me any good. Who said anything about night work? Grace was outraged. I'm talking about changing jobs. You know what I mean, Kieran? You know it's impossible to get a high-paying job without connections. And you can count on me. You want me to find you a job like that. But where would you find it? Grace, don't be ridiculous on the internet. Kieran grinned. "No, not like that," she said. "I'm not stupid enough to look for a prestigious job on the internet. I still have some connections from the past. I can build bridges and try to find you something more worthy of your intelligence and your knowledge. How would you feel about that?" "Grace, did you have such a past?" Kieran wondered. "Were you what? Am I jealous of your past?" Grace laughed. "Well, that's silly. Didn't you have one before me? And then I worked for this big company and I was in good standing. That's all it was." "Why did you leave such a great company?" "I'm afraid you wouldn't believe it." Grace hesitated. "Or you'd take it the wrong way. So I'd rather not talk about it. But I'd like to know what pitfalls to expect if you're going to put me in there." "Okay," Grace sighed. "Just promise not to jump to conclusions. Listen. My boss's wife was jealous of me for him, but not of the boss himself, but of the head of the department I worked in." "That's funny," Kieran snorted. "But you couldn't prove your innocence?" "I wasn't going to prove it. It's beyond me," Grace said. "I just quit, that's all." "And you want people to say behind my back that I'm the husband of the woman who was having an affair with the boss?" "I knew it," Grace said sharply. "I didn't, and haven't been hooking up with anyone. And you're a man. Are you afraid of some idle gossip? It's ridiculous. Kieran, if you're a man, you should be afraid of small wages, low ranks, and poverty, not gossip. We have a son growing up. He needs a good kindergarten, not a bunch of snotty kids where he'll always be sick, but a real elite one. Then you are not going to give him to a simple high school, where they raise drug addicts and alcoholics for the future of the country." Grace kept coming at him. "The kid should be in a school with good kids from good families, not with the rabble where he's going to become the same rabble." "Grace, you're making it worse," Kieran objected. "I went to high school and, as you can see, I didn't become a rabble." "Don't compare," Grace said. "It's a different time. The worthy join the worthy. And the trash?" She didn't finish. She stood up abruptly and went into the other room. Then she stopped at the door, turned around and said, "Think about all this at your leisure. In a word, I'm right. And you know it. When you've thought it over, you'll say." The dream house was built, and Kieran's family moved in. "Kieran, it's time to tear down that shed that's such an eyesore," Grace said. "We'll plant roses and weed the lawn and all that. I'll go out to the kitchen in the morning and look at the beauty of it. It'll make me thirsty. This shed prevents me from realizing my plans to transform the landscape around the house. It's going to take a lot of money to demolish the house. And your landscape too." Kieran shook his head. "So my solution is not to demolish the house, but to renovate it with the money that would have gone into demolishing it. I can't demolish the house my grandparents built." "You're crazy." Grace gasped. "You've made up your mind? Did you ask me? Do you ask me when you've made up your mind? Was the wedding according to your plan? Did you plan the vacation? Did you design the house?" "I bought the car on my own." "Did you ask me? Are you going to do this for the rest of your life? I'm going to have this barn and this car in my face." Grace was torn up with emotion. "I wanted what was best. I wanted our child to walk and play on the lawn, not bump into that shed." "Shut up." Kieran couldn't help himself. "And don't call the house where my parents were born a barn. There's no telling how things will turn out. Maybe someone else will have to live in this house. I could use the extra room. It would prevent me from being completely happy." Grace took a breath. "I didn't envision our home that way, and this shed is a hindrance to that." Kieran glanced at his wife, and she stopped talking. "And you know, Kieran, people will come to the housewarming party and be surprised by this wreck in the middle of the yard. The old house steals the impression of the new. I don't think anyone's going to be jealous to see that wretched thing in the yard. It's a good thing they won't. They'll sleep better." Kieran interrupted her rudely. "You don't think they will this time? Accept it. And even your tears won't make me back down." After the quarrel, Grace did not speak to her husband for a week. She hoped to get what she wanted by keeping quiet. But she realized Kieran wasn't that simple. Once he'd said something, he was unlikely to change his mind. But that's all right, she'll get her way in other ways. Grace, as a hostess, was proud of her brainchild and showed the guests the possibilities of the smart house. Despite the old house in the backyard, everyone admired the new home. But she didn't invite guests just to show off. She had her own plans for them. She decided to tear down the old house with their hands to get their support. Well, it certainly worked out the way Kieran and I wanted it to, Grace said at the party table. But Kieran doesn't want to tear down the old house. He thinks it's appropriate here. Personally, I don't think so. So I'd like to get some outside opinions. Do you think there's a need for an old hut next to this magnificent house? Hearing such unpleasant words about her house, Grandma was saddened. She lowered her head and smoothed the folds of her skirt. She cried furtively, quickly wiping away her tears with her handkerchief so no one would notice. Kieran's mother put her arms around his grandmother and pulled her close. Kieran saw all of this. He was ashamed of his wife's words in front of his grandmother and in front of his parents. Of course, a lot of people had come to the housewarming party, and he didn't want to find out about it. He didn't want to spoil the holiday for those who came to enjoy their new home and have fun. I wouldn't tear the house down either, said Ivan, Kieran's friend. I would renovate it, make it into an extra living space. No one could use the extra living space. On the contrary, many at the table supported Ivan, which upset Grace very much. She realized she had lost this time. If it weren't for my parents and my grandmother, this house wouldn't exist, said Kieran. Let's drink to their health, he said to the guests. My loved ones, my dear ones, thank you for everything. Kieran went to his mother, father, and grandmother and kissed them. What about me? Don't I get a thank you? Grace said resentfully. If it wasn't for me. Of course, everyone heard the indignation of the mistress of the house, but realized that it was not worth focusing on her offended words. Everyone supported the toast. The guests made praised toasts in honor of the hosts. The guests cheered, and Grace did not feel her triumph. She was not envious of the people who had come to the housewarming party. They just shared the joy, cheered, and for some reason praised Kieran and his parents, but not her. She was the one who had built the house thanks to her kicking, and his parents' money had been given not for nothing, but as a loan. Why were you pouting all evening? Kieran asked his wife. Well, it's not proper to invite people and sit like a mouse on the croup. He hugged her, kissed her on the temple. My little mouse, look, you'll burst. Kieran wanted to cheer up his wife. So all smart and clever, all honored, all participants in the construction of the house, I'm the only one on the side. Grace was indignant. And why didn't you say that your beloved grandmother, Daddy and Mommy gave you the money on credit? Why did you sing such dithyrambs to them? Didn't you know that? If we had borrowed the money from the bank, the interest would have cost us another house, Kieran explained. Grace, you know all about that. And then my parents forgave me half of the money and gave it to my grandmother to rebuild the house. Oh, so that's it. I'm nobody here, and my name is nobody. And that's the last I'll know, Grace said, indignantly. I only found out about it today. My dad told me about it, that it was their housewarming gift to us. Kieran changed his tone. Grace, well, since we don't have to pay off the debt, let's hire a housekeeper. Look how big the house is, how much cleaning there is, especially today after the guests so many dishes to wash. You have a dishwasher, said Kieran. But you have to get the dishes ready before it. I don't think I can do it alone. Why did you have to build such a big house? Convenience, Grace said sharply. Convenience. What's the point of hiring a housekeeper? And then you haven't even gone to work yet. Can't you handle it? Of course I can't. There's house after house after house, and that old house of yours. I'm prioritizing the baby. I told you I could call you about a job that pays twice your salary. A good one. You don't say anything, so you're okay with the pittance you get. And we have to suffer because our breadwinner is happy with a good salary. I get it, said Kieran. Because no one was jealous of you today, you decided to take out your anger on me. You know what I'll tell you? This house was built because I loved you, and I promised it to you. Or rather, you made me promise you. I was building it. And I already knew it then. We didn't understand each other, and we never will. No matter what kind of house we live in, happiness doesn't depend on the wall. Honestly, I hate this house. Everything revolves around it. Where are we? Grace? Where are we? Is the house more important than our feelings? With this house and your crazy ideas, we've lost everything we had. 4 years we lived with you. We built a house, and that's it. We have no common ground, Grace sighed. So while we were building the house, we had something in common, and now we don't. Isn't our baby Vincent a common ground? Grace, we dreamed of this house. We dreamed of how happy we'd be to live in it, Kieran said. You were the one who dreamed of it. I was just the doer. I don't want to stay in this house. I have a terrible headache from your arguments, your frustrations, and your irritation. I'm going to sleep at Grandma's house. Is that what you're going to keep it for? To run away from me? Kieran didn't respond to his wife's words, only shut the door tightly behind him. Grace went into the kitchen. She didn't want to look out of the windows at that hut on chicken legs. For the first time in their 4 years together, Kieran had not slept with her, had defiantly gone to that hovel she hated. No, she doesn't want that kind of strife. First, he will not lie in the marital bed. Then he will find himself a mistress. And then, perhaps, will wish to divorce her. That's something she can't let happen. She can't find a man like Kieran. She's not so stupid, she realizes that. Besides, where would she go in the event of a divorce? Her parents? No. By any means necessary, she'll still be the mistress of this magnificent house. Kieran's not exactly a star in the sky, but he does his best for his family. And that's the kind of husband you'll find. And then a father is better than a stepfather for her child. Kieran loves Vincent very much, but you can't play on his love for a child for long. You've got to be more subtle. Kieran didn't go into the new house. Grace watched from the window as he left for work, and for the first time they didn't have breakfast together, so he's still angry with her. And by the looks of it, there'd be more fighting tonight. She had to get the house in order, cook something nice for dinner after the guests, and be sure to have candles to make it intimate and romantic. Grace decided that she needed to clean herself up too, so that Kieran could see who he was trying to make a deal with. What's a wife like her to look for? And the fact that she was pushing him to some small victories, so it was again only a plus for her. Without her initiative, they would live in this shack with paper wallpaper. Grace didn't like the fact that Kieran was stubborn, unwilling to take the high-paying job. She'd already made inquiries, got her ex-lover involved. There's a place, but they won't wait long. We need to get Kieran and push him into a position that would bring them good money. Of course, the work there is nervous. The state constantly allocates money for government contracts, so there are frequent inspections, audits, where auditors pick on every comma. Not everyone can withstand such nervous tension. Despite high salaries, people often quit. That's why it's possible to get Kieran a job there. Kieran, don't do that again. I was up all night. I'm used to having you with me at night. I was scared. I wanted to call you, but I was afraid you'd start fighting with me again. I know you're tired. The guest had been drinking, so he got a little hasty. Maybe I'm wrong about something, but you're wrong too, honey. No matter how much we fight, we should sleep together. I didn't sleep all night either, said Kieran, and I was scared about the way we were living, you know. I thought about it for a long time, and I realized that you and I are not a couple. We're so different sometimes it's impossible. You only think about material things? I don't deny that our world is real, and it takes money, but I can't give you as much money as you want. You'd better find another man to encourage your ideas. I'm willing to give you your freedom. Let's get a divorce. I can't take it anymore, you know. I can't. Don't you love me anymore? Grace immediately burst into tears. Baby, how could I be without you? How could Vincent be without you? Do you really want your son to be raised by someone else's uncle? When the most difficult part of our life is over, do you suddenly think about it, Kieran? Grace sat down next to her husband and put her arms around him. Look at me, look at me. Can't you see how much I love you? No, 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 I can't have a divorce. And I don't want any other man. You may not believe me, but I can't live without you, and I don't want to live without you. Do you really want our baby to be without a mother? What do you mean motherless? Kieran didn't understand. Will you leave Vincent with me in the divorce? I don't mind. I don't mind at all. Mom and Grandma will help me raise him. What's Granny and Mommy got to do with it? Of course, when I'm gone, they can help you. You misunderstand me, Kieran. If you leave me, I'll kill myself. And it's not just words or threats. If you want to know the truth of my promises, divorce me, and you'll find out how you'll live with it, Kieran. And what will you tell your son when he grows up and asks you why I did it? It's blackmail. That's all I need. I didn't think you were capable of that. I'm not. It's not blackmail, Kieran, it's love. I can't imagine life without you. That's the truth. Don't drive me away, my love. Grace sobbed. Let me stay by your side and let me love you. Is that too much to ask? Kieran realized that the whole thing seemed like a cheap candlelight performance. But knowing Grace's mobile psyche, where tears for no reason at all, where tears could turn into laughter in a minute, what the hell, maybe her suicide threats weren't so unfounded. If that happens, he really won't forgive himself. He was so tired of it all. Kieran realized that he had been up all night and had a terrible headache. I want to sleep, he said. I have a headache. Where are the medicines? I don't know where they are in this house yet. Peace. Sweet peace. Grace looked into her husband's eyes and said, You're going to see how great things are going to be with you and me. You won't regret that we didn't get divorced. I said, I have a headache. Give me a pill. This time there was no danger of divorce. Grace saw that Kieran was determined to break up, but fell for her threat to kill herself. So he was scared. And that's good for her. She'll know how to manipulate her husband. It's time for Grace to come back to work from maternity leave. So she decides to use one more trick on her husband. She's going to try to squeeze him after all. He'll take the job she got him. Although, I'm not going back to my old job. I quit. What's wrong with your job? No new people to envy you, Kieran grinned. I know you meant it as a joke, to poke fun at me. But it's not about envy. Someone in our family has to earn money if he won't take that responsibility. I have to provide for my family. I'll get a job, I can hire a housekeeper. I won't have time to take care of the house. I have to put the baby in a high-end daycare center. I'm not putting Vincent in a breeding ground for infections. And I need money for that too. Did you get a job like that? Where do they pay the money you're going to use to do all this? Kieran asked with a grin. Yes, I did, Grace replied calmly. That's where you don't want to go. I'll go to my lover, Kieran said angrily. Why your lover? I explained the situation to you. No one there was my lover. And then I am a married woman. What claims can there be against me? I have a family, a child. I put that above all gossip. That's when I took offense and left. And now I have grown out of these petty grudges so I can go to work there again. Grace continued. But I'll tell you right away, it's hard work. And no one gets paid money for nothing. Sometimes, and on weekends are loaded. Sometimes you have to work late, irregular working hours. In short, it's all spelled out in the labor contract. I tell you about all this at once, so that then there were no claims against me. Why did you decide this on your own? And you're just putting me on the spot. It's a family matter, so we have to decide it together, Kieran answered calmly. We are, Grace replied. But you've left me no choice. Someone has to take financial responsibility for the family. Is this your way of pushing me into this job? Is that what I'm offering you right now? I realize it's not your thing. It's useless to hold you accountable. So I'll go myself. Well, go, said Kieran. When you go out, most likely in a week you have to quit your old job and then. Kieran didn't talk about the subject again. And Grace had said all she wanted to say. She hadn't expected Kieran to say that. She'd have to do the work herself. If she gave up the idea, Kieran would realize that it was just scaremongering, manipulation. So he won't take her threats seriously. She would not want to meet with those who witnessed that shameful scandal when the wife of her lover came straight to the department, grabbed her by the hair, and hit her head against the table where she was sitting. She hit it with such force that a lump formed on her forehead and her nose bled. If I ever see you at this table again, said the scandalized woman, I will beat your bad head against the table until this table falls apart. Such shame and such scandal. Grace didn't know where to put her eyes from the gloating of those around her, so she couldn't take it anymore and quit. Now would she have to see all those faces again? Grace heard that Kieran had learned all the tricks. I guess this conversation had touched him after all. He He was thinking, after all, she was glad of her husband's concern. It means she's not hopeless and she's on the right track. "Kieran, darling, can I give you a lift to work today?" Grace said at breakfast. "We'll go to my old job. I have to hand in my resignation letter. We'd better hurry. A good job won't wait long. As soon as it's available, it'll be taken. So take advantage of my kindness." Grace smiled and poked Kieran on the cheek. "I'll make it quick. You won't be late?" "Don't worry." "Wait, Grace, before you quit." Grace looked at her husband questioningly. "Can you wait for 2 days?" Kieran asked. "Why?" "I don't get it, Grace." "Wait for what, Kieran?" "To wait for the seat I'm counting on to be filled. Miss out and regret it." "No, Kieran, I can't take that risk. Eugene promised me a spot. Maybe it'll work out. And if it doesn't, Eugene won't help me, and I'll lose the job." "No, Kieran. They gave me a week to do everything. That place Eugene's promising, is the pay really good?" Grace asked with doubt in her voice. "Yes, it's good, 1.5 times my salary. But it'll have to wait. But if Eugene doesn't work out, then I'll take that job of yours. You're afraid of gossip. What if Eugene doesn't work out? And you don't think I'll have time to register?" "I can't take that risk, Kieran. It's not every day you get a job like this. I give you my word, I'll go if it doesn't work out with Eugene. If Grace, you know, if I've given my word, it's my word. It's my word. So you don't have to worry. Vincent's going to have a high-end daycare center." "Thank you, darling." Grace rushed over to kiss Kieran. "Once again, I was convinced I'd chosen the right husband. How lucky I am to have you. Right here, Kieran. It scares me when people envy me what a wonderful husband I have." Grace was afraid of jinxing the situation. Knowing Kieran, she still hoped that he would take financial responsibility for the family. Would he really be satisfied with a salary less than hers? Grace would certainly be happy for Eugene to find Kieran a job. According to Kieran, the pay there is even higher than what Grace was promised. And then there's no malcontents there who'd want to tell Kieran the truth. "I don't care about them, let them talk." She'd get out of it. Kieran would believe her, not these envious people who did nothing but envy her. Eugene couldn't get a job for Kieran, so having given his word to his wife, Kieran had to go to work where Grace had gotten a bad name. He didn't realize that he would find out the details of his wife's liaisons with her boss and the other employees of that business so quickly. It wasn't that he'd been deliberately inquiring. It had all spilled out on its own. Kieran even liked the work interesting, promising, and he gave himself to it completely, for which he received a decent salary and even bonuses. No, of course, not immediately he found out about everything. He worked quietly until some personalities did not realize that he was the husband of the very Grace, who, seeking the best place for herself, jumped from one bed to another. It turns out that she boldly took advantage of men who promoted her career. And then she did not squander the attention of customers with whom she worked, and for the good of the company traveled to foreign resorts with these customers. It was a shock to Kieran. Who was he living with? A whore. That's why she's pulling his heart out. She's used to living the high life, and he, a simple guy, fell naively into the clutches of a predator. Grace had never seen Kieran so drunk. He couldn't speak a word. She could tell from his rambling speech that he'd found out. She didn't care what he'd been told. The next day, when Kieran sobered up, she would refute all these rumors and gossip. After all, who would he believe, her or those who had once envied her? Her, of course. She's his wife. And then there's the whole pre-marriage thing. As Kieran's wife, she never cheated on him. She just didn't have time for it. She molded her husband into the kind of man she thought he should be. Coming home from work in such an inebriated state, Kieran spoke his mind as best he could and collapsed on the bed without undressing. Grace didn't take off his clothes out of principle. He'll wake up. He'll be ashamed of himself for stooping to this, she thought. Kieran was wheezing, and he stank of booze. So Grace retired from the bedroom to the living room couch. She couldn't sleep for a long time, preparing an exculpatory speech to her husband. And then she had to keep him from doing something rash, or God forbid, he would think of quitting. To the children's and youth sports school, she turned to her son. "Set the table for breakfast. Go wake up Daddy. It's time to have breakfast and get ready for work." About 3 minutes later, Vincent returned with the words, "Daddy doesn't want to get up. He's lying on the floor. I wake him up, but he won't get up." "Well, I've got to go bow at his feet," Grace was angry. But she realized that anger was not her best counselor today. Today she must be patient, not to quarrel with her husband, but to convince him of her innocence. She must tell him he was right. Envious people are bad. That's what envy brings people to gossip. Nasty gossip, she decided. Walking into the bedroom, Grace said, "Kieran, get up for work. It's time." Kieran was lying on the floor beside the bed. It was strange. He was lying on his back with his arms and legs spread. His face is very calm, his eyes are open, and it looks like he's... "Kieran." Grace shouted and turned to her husband.